Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Municipality of Dysart meeting on May 5th, 2020. I apologize for any delay. If there was ever a time that we can say that we need some internet access across the county, it is it. So we are still actually waiting for one councillor to call in, but we've had a little bit of technical difficulty, so I apologize for that. I want to start by thanking everyone who helped get this meeting in place, all the IT department at the county, and they've been helping with all the municipalities with their Zoom meeting. And just to explain for those of you who are watching, this is live streamed, but we'll also be recording this and archiving it, and we'll let you know where you can find that. If you want to leave the meeting after half an hour, for instance, and you want to see the rest of it, we will have it archived. I just want to explain the process a little bit. We're going to start with a roll call of all councillors, and then as we go forward, I will take motions from the floor as I am able to see all the councillors, and so just with a raise of your hand, I will accept a mover and a seconder on a motion, and we'll also take the vote by way of a show of hands. I will ask all those in favor and I will ask all those opposed. And so that's how we will do the process of the meeting. So we will start with the call of and the roll call, please, from the clerk.
Councillor Clark.
Remember to unmute, please.
Thank you. Councillor Donaldson.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Kennedy.
Here.
Councillor McKechnie.
Here.
Councillor Smith.
Here.
Councillor Wood Roberts will be calling in, and Mayor Roberts.
Here.
I'm confirming all members are in attendance except Councillor Wood Roberts.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. So the first resolution is to adopt the agenda for today's meeting. So do I have a mover?
I'll move.
Councillor Clark, and a seconder? Councillor Smith. Be it resolved that the agenda for the meeting of Council of the Municipality of Dysart et al. Held on May 5th, 2020 be approved as presented. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried. The next, adopt a disclosure of pecuniary interest. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest?
None.
No, seeing none. We have a resolution to adopt the minutes from our March 24th meeting. Do I have?
I'll move.
Okay, Councillor Clark
I'll second.
and Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved that the minutes of March 24th, 2020 regular council meeting be adopted as circulated. All those in favor? And any opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried. So we do have an item here, Mayor and Deputy Mayor's update, and I just don't say too much, but I do want to thank all the staff who are participating in this meeting and all the councillors for their patience and hard work during this crisis. I don't think anyone ever envisioned anything like this when they signed up for council. But these are definitely challenging times, and I feel that Dysart has risen to the challenge, all staff and council. So thank you so much. Our emergency control group is working so well together. Really proud of the whole team. And we've had to make some tough decisions. Some of those decisions, like landfill closures, for example, may not be very popular, but we made them with evidence, and we will be monitoring all our decisions on a weekly basis. We are now meeting twice a week. We also early on made sure that we didn't want to take away the role of council. So I'm very glad that we're able to have a council meeting today. The emergency control group deals with everything about the emergency, and council will deal with everything else. So I want to thank everybody, and there's been some fabulous, wonderful, positive stories in our town, and I honestly can say we're blessed to be living here in Dysart and in Haliburton County. I just want to add that the Premier, Doug Ford, announced yesterday a call with all cottage mayors concerning the ongoing issues and concerns with cottagers, whether they're allowed to be at their cottage, etc. And so I'm not haven't received an email yet, so I'm not sure when that call will be, but I He did say it would be this week, and we will share, I will share the outcome. I will turn to Deputy Mayor Kennedy to see if he has anything he would like to add in his report.
Hi. Not really much to add, Madam Mayor. It's been a trying time for everybody, and I really want to thank the community for the support that they've been showing each other, and to our business community who have risen to the challenge of trying to conduct business in these trying times. Looking forward to getting back to some kind of normalcy, and as we start to return to the way we were prior to this, looking forward to a good summer. Anyways, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. It'll be a different summer, but it will still be summer nonetheless. So thanks very much. So we do have a delegation. I will ask the administrator if she can unmute our delegation. And Nancy Wood-Roberts, Councillor Roberts, is on the call now.
Yes, she is. So I'm going to unmute her.
So just to reiterate, so Councillor Wood-Roberts, what we're going to do is you aren't able to do it with both hands. So if you would like to move or second a motion, just speak up and I will hear you. When we're doing voting, voting by a show of hands, but I will always ask you're voting, okay? Just to clarify that process. Thank you. Okay, so we will move to, we have the Director of Planning and our Senior Planner online as well, and the delegation. So I'll leave it to start with the Director of Planning and or Chris.
First, thanks, Mayor. Given that we have a delegation here, we thought that it would probably be best just to let them make their presentation, and then staff are here to answer any questions that any councillors have.
Excellent. Okay, so what I'll do then is I will turn it over to Jamie Chisholm and Jerry Walker, and I'll let you two decide who wants to speak first to your request.
So it's Jerry Walker here. Am I on?
Yes, you are. We hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll be speaking to the delegation to start off, and Jamie's available for any questions. He's a little more on the technical, did the submission to councillors and the planning, and we've dealt with this for quite some time. So first off, I'd like to thank council for accepting our delegation, as I guess we're the very first one to ever be part of this new program, and we appreciate your time and look forward to seeing how this works out. So Jamie, in the last preparation for the council meeting, has sent all councillors a copy of our what we want to discuss, and I hope all councillors had an opportunity to review it. It's a pretty basic, I call it a request, but it's basically the securities that we put up 2 or 3 years ago on this project here on for the home hardware. We're just requesting that we get these monies returned. We're not asking for all the monies, as we require some security for warranty. It has been laid out quite extensively in the report, and we opened basically 1 year ago tomorrow, May 6th. It's hard to believe we've been here a year already. We did open with a full occupancy permit through your building department, and we feel we've submitted all the engineering reports as required. So we are looking to have those securities returned to us, withholding a bit of warranty security money, and that's basically what we're looking for. So if anyone has any questions, hopefully you've had an opportunity to review the summary there, and I'll just entertain any questions. I don't think there's any point in trying to go page by page or trying to review it. Everyone's had a chance. It's pretty straightforward. These are our monies, and we're just like to have them back.
Okay, before we take questions, perhaps I'll just see if Jamie, you'd like to add something further to that. And yes, we have a report in our council package with the letter you wrote on February 25th. So Jamie, do you want to add anything to what Jerry just said?
Just very minor point. Certainly echo everything Jerry said. And I think the main point is while there have been some changes, the changes aren't material in nature. We have, as Jerry pointed out, completed and submitted supplemental follow-up certificates and certifications. Although the one thing, aside from the changes are material, I sincerely believe this is that the site plan we have today is much better than was in the original site plan. The parking is significantly more. We provide 41% more than is actually required. So even when there's been some temporary snow storage, we've always had a minimum of 80 in use at any time, and we only require 75. But I think the other great thing is that Jerry working with some of our suppliers, the retaining wall, how they look, it looks much nicer than we originally contemplated. The circulation around the site is better. And I just finish off by saying, my hat's off to Dale and Jerry in these tough times, servicing customers, both coming to the door and taking to the door. And like everybody, who knew we'd be in this place, but as Jerry said, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I really believe we have a good site plan and our building is built exactly where it was supposed to be. And I'll stop talking now. Thank you.
Okay, no, you don't have to stop talking if you're ready. For clarification, what I read from your letter from February 25th is that you're requesting, and there's a breakdown of it, but the total is $49,775. Is that correct?
Just look at my own notes. In total, we are requesting $56,635. If you look at the very last page 10 of my report, there's two tranches. One is $41,700 for phase one. And then there was securities that were originally allocated for phase two. We're asking for 60% of those monies back. So the total that we'd be requesting now is out of a total of 61,500 securities, we're requesting 56,635. So approximately $5,000 would be left with the township as security. Those monies would be really allocated to make sure we finish off the last little bit of landscaping, which we'll do this spring, and B, just added protection if there's any erosion concerns. And as confirmed by the county and I believe township staff, there are no erosion concerns. And but notwithstanding that, we're keeping those monies back, as well as a disproportionate amount for the landscaping.
Okay, so what I was reading is that was the amount for phase one, and then when you add a bit for phase two, it comes to a total of the $56,635.
Correct. Yes.
There's also some other requests, which is to do with changing the site plan. So I suppose we can deal with securities one thing at a time. Is there any other comments before I take questions from councillors from the senior planner or our director of planning?
I have no questions.
Any other comments from Jeff or Chris before we take questions from the councillors?
No, I think we sort of established everything through the staff report, and really it was sort of a three, as mentioned. It's essentially a three request. One was for the securities, and then the other two are, as there are changes to the approved plan and the site plan agreement, those require council approval or direction for staff as to if the changes are acceptable and those type of things, which has been identified through the report. That's really my only comment.
Okay. All right, so I'll take questions from councillors concerning this. I see Deputy Mayor Kennedy, please.
Just clarification more than anything, Jamie and Jerry, and thanks for all your efforts to making this project go ahead, and congratulations, Jerry, on your 1-year anniversary. There's
Thank you.
in the report on page 4, it talks about your securities, the $6,800. The report says you're requesting that be released October the 1st, and yet what you're requesting is now, and I think that maybe that's where the discrepancy is. Well, the mayor is referring to the 49,000 now versus 56. Is that correct?
Right. Go ahead, Jamie.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to follow along. So I'm just looking at the very, I'll call it the summary page. So it would be.
Yeah, I got your summary page. I'm just referring to the report that the staff have given us on page 4, phase 2 securities. It says the Schedule E of the site plan in the amount of 9,500. The developer is requesting that 6860 be released on October the 1st, 2020, leaving 2940. Your request today is that 6860 be released now. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, Councillor Kennedy, we could, one thing to consider as council's making a decision is to release the securities, what I first mentioned, which was 49,775, and then release the 6860 at the October 1st date. So that's one option. Other councillors' comments? Nobody else, no other councillors want to, Councillor Smith?
Sorry, just a question of staff with respect to follow-up to Pat's question. Does staff have a perspective on the appropriateness of returning that sum earlier than was otherwise recognized?
Do you want me to take this?
Sure, if you want to jump in on that one, Jeff.
Yeah, and staff's comments all along have been based on the site plan agreement that was agreed to by both parties. So Chris has done a very good job preparing a report for council that just kind of reviewed that entire agreement and outlined why staff made decisions to either agree to return partial security or not agree to return security at all. So we've brought this forward to council for a council decision because staff are bounded by that agreement. So we have turned down their request, and now it's before council to make that decision.
Clark?
A quick comment. I think most businesses are stressed somewhat with the current business environment. I think if there's anything we can do to try and accommodate at least some partial return to facilitate business, I think we should. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Deputy Mayor Kennedy?
And I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I'd be willing to make a motion that we release the total that's requested, $56,635. If you want to put that motion on the floor for debate.
Yes, and unfortunately, the draft resolution wasn't included in our package. So I do have a draft resolution in front of me that has a blank. So it's for the figure, and the other two bullets are regarding the changes to the site plan and the changes to the approved as attached. So is everyone in agreement with the full amount of 56,000, or is there anyone that wanted to just release the 49,000 at this time? Councillor Donaldson?
I just agree with Larry too, that it should be the whole amount that he's requesting.
Okay. So there seems to be a bit of consensus and nobody dreadfully opposed. What I'd like to then that seems, but they're all hand in hand. In terms of the site plan agreement, I want to just ask Jerry and Jamie, is it possible, as you don't know at this point what phase 2 is, could we enter, I think site plans should match what's on the ground. And obviously, as you go under construction sometimes, and Jamie, you referred to this, that the things you feel are better than were in the original site plan. But the fact is the site plan doesn't match sort of as built. if you will. So what about when phase 2 proposal comes forward, would that be an appropriate time to correct the site plan?
If I could answer that, maybe?
Yes.
That's a good idea in my mind. As you know, by going through this site plan, that was pretty extensive, and this is a pretty extensive project.
Yes.
Site plans are written before we even close the property and actually cut a tree. The site plan process, we're not in a flat field in Oshawa or down in Southern Ontario. We have a bit of rock and some other things in our way here. So as it turned out, we're developers. We want to get going on this. Staff have a process where we talk to engineers and we put everything together. And it comes right down to this property ended up to be approximately a meter higher than we originally thought. And it was done because of rock. We had to blast rock. So not to get into a long-winded thing here, but site plans are a guideline and written before the project even begins. So part of our proposal is we entered into the site plan with a proposal for up to an 8,000 square foot building on phase 2. To this point, we haven't obtained a lease tenant to build for, but if that project comes along to be 6,000 square feet, and that's what we would do, we would still have to talk to planning department to make sure, through the building department, to make sure that it does fit and will work. So, Mayor Andrea, with your thought there, maybe at that later time, there might be an opportunity there to correct the plantings that we did, our parking configuration, which could change again with phase 2. So that would be an appropriate time in my mind to address that. We're not going away, and that would be appropriate.
Okay, any other councillors' comments on the idea of the site plan and holding off on revising? Technically, we wouldn't, and I'll check with Chris Orson, our planner, too, if that's a possibility that we enter into when they're doing phase 2 to have, because otherwise we're, like I say, in this resolution, it says to approve or deny the changes to the site plan agreement. I'm not saying deny right now, but that we don't need to change the site plan twice. We should be changing it at phase 2. So Chris, do you want to comment on that?
Sure. Again, it's as per the site plan agreement, like we discussed, we were bound into that. We do understand that will be changes, or as you go through construction, everything else, there's tend to be changes due to the topography and everything else. So staff obviously realize that. And as for the change or doing the changes at a further date, I don't know if I really see that being an issue. However, really I would leave it up to council if they see that's a good option to go ahead with.
I think a lot will depend on what type of a tenant goes into the phase 2 project. I mean, we all know with like a restaurant needs more parking spaces than I don't know, can't think, a eyeglasses place. So what's the third bullet point in our resolution says to approve or deny changes to the approved plans as attached. Would we hold off on that as well?
I'm sorry, I'm just looking through the site plan agreement as we're going through this. Unless Jeff, you have anything to contribute to that.
Well, the only thing I was going to mention is I think those 2 bullets for council consideration with regards to amendment to the agreement or an amendment to the plan basically boil down to phase 2. Most of the other concerns were with regards to security and completion of those sections of the agreement. I can't remember exactly how the agreement is worded and whether the new tenants will have to get into their own site plan agreement or whether it will be an amendment to this agreement but that's something.
if I may, sorry.
Jamie?
I would point out what we're talking about is contemplated in the site plan agreement. Section 5.0 of the site plan agreement is a section that's entitled as constructed drawings. And so the site plan agreement contemplates at the completion where we are now that we, the developer and our consultants will submit the final drawings, which show exactly what has been built and identify all changes from the original. So we've done that. So in my view, we fulfilled that condition, certainly as it relates to phase 1. And similarly, if and when we do a phase 2, we would do the same thing. So the township absolutely has both the engineering reports and the actual as constructed drawings on file so that there is no ambiguity as to what has been built and what's there.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. So just, and Councillor Smith, yeah, go ahead.
Just with respect to that, and maybe to staff, could they clarify whether an updated site plan agreement will be required when and if there's a concrete proposal for a second phase of the development, another building to go up, whether it's for eyeglasses or a restaurant or whatever it will be? Do we have a chance to review a site plan associated with that before any additional construction takes place?
So, yep. So as per 2.3 in the site plan agreement, it does acknowledge about the second phase of a site plan reference for a commercial building. As I'm just reading through this quickly, such site plan approval process may include additional information with respect to stormwater, traffic impact, those type of things, and the minimum requirement unless determined otherwise by council. So council would have, or at least staff would see it, and if there's anything that would arise from that, I believe that we would bring that to council for site plan as well. So I believe that section there does capture it, that we will be able to have that look at that time when something is proposed for that phase 2.
And just if I could comment on that.
Okay, so Jerry Walker, Jerry has the floor.
No, not me.
Okay, sorry, who was speaking? Pardon me, Jeff Isles.
And if I could just add to Chris's comments, we will require site plan control for that development as per our site plan control bylaws. So the only part I'm not clear about is whether it would be an amendment to the existing agreement or a new agreement for the new development. I defer that to Chris because he knows the agreement probably a little bit better than I. But we definitely will require site plan control unless council decides to waive it as per the site plan control bylaw.
Okay. Well, Madam Mayor, with that assurance.
Okay, sorry, John. Chris was going to answer that, and just put your hand and I'll take you next. But Chris was going to answer Jeff's question.
Certainly, I believe that would be something that we'd have to look into. I think we can check with our solicitor to see, based on how the site plan agreement is constructed, it may just be an amendment to that, or it may be that there would be a separate site plan agreement for that tenant, as that would be sort of a separate entity of that property being run independently, so to speak. So that would be a question that I would definitely, unfortunately, can't entirely answer at this point, but I would say that we would look into that, and at the time that the site plan comes in, we can determine whether an amendment is appropriate or if a new site plan agreement is required.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
Okay, well then, with that assurance that whether it turns out to be an amendment or a new site plan coming back to council before any construction begins on the second phase, and recognizing that the existing business has been operating for a year, I'd certainly have no issue with proceeding with the that basis. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, like I said, generally in our packages, we have the sample resolution, so we were able to go through it. So I don't know whether it be Chris or Jeff that wrote this resolution. There's 3 bullet points in it. And one is regarding the amount for security, which I think we've all agreed on will be the full amount. And we'll take a vote on that. But the other 2 bullets are whether approve, deny changes to site plan, approve, deny changes to approved plans as attached. is it possible to just take those out and all we're doing today is approving the securities? Don't include those in the resolution?
I think that could be an appropriate approach. If we're just dealing with releasing the securities at this time, I don't foresee any issue with that at this point, and we can always look into the site plans, approvals and things like that as we
Excellent.
progress. Yeah.
Okay, so is everyone, I see nods as a counselor, so the resolution would read, and then I will take a mover and a seconder. Be it resolved, the council provides staff with direction as it relates to the subject lands known as County Road 21 East Incorporated and County Road 21 West Incorporated home hardware for the following: to approve partial release of security from Schedule E of Site Plan Agreement 85254 in the amount of $56,635. Do I have a mover?
Move.
Councillor or Deputy Mayor Kennedy, and a seconder, Councillor Smith. All in favor? Opposed? Nancy Wood Roberts, all in favor? She's off. Oh, she's offline.
She's muted, but she said she's good.
Okay, that doesn't count as a vote, but it is
No,
carried by 6.
she passed along because she's cut off right now and muted.
Yeah. Okay, that is carried. And Councillor Mayor Kennedy?
Sorry, go ahead and get it carried. Nancy just has a question here. She just texted me.
Okay, that's not going to be official. I can't do it, so sorry. We'll have to work out the technicalities for our next meeting.
She's requesting a break just so she can run down to the office and get online.
I'd kind of like to keep planning going, and she can join in when she can. If you want to text her that back, we do have quorum, and I want to keep the meeting going. We are live, and we'll keep it going. So that motion was carried. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for doing your curbside pickup, and hopefully your garden center can open up, and we look forward to the opening of retail slowly but surely. So thank you, Jamie.
And so are we.
I bet.
Okay,
Thank you for your support.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Stay safe, everyone.
Look forward to phase 2 of that project. Okay, so we will move along and we'll keep going in our as we have planning. So the first is the zoning bylaw amendment. So Jeff, that's you.
Yeah, thank you. And before I move on, I just want to share some exciting news with everybody. On Friday, Chris and his wife, Jess, welcomed a healthy baby girl to the world.
Congratulations, Chris, to you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks for embarrassing him. That's great. That's great.
A little tired today.
Yeah, I bet.
Moving on to the agenda item, you're right. It's an updated timeline for the general amendment to the municipality zoning bylaw. I want to state that this report was originally written for and prepared for the March 24th council meeting. Since then, the COVID-19 emergency has obviously changed the way we live and do business, and included some delays. And this process is no exception to that. In August at the council meeting, council approved a draft project overview. Staff have now revised that timeline. And that's what I'm providing with council today. It's just an updated timeline of events and when approvals will happen. Due to the COVID-19 emergency, it is unclear though if that timeline will be able to proceed on time. Specifically the public consultation portion. I think it's necessary that we hold our public meetings and our open house in the summer if possible to facilitate input from lake associations, seasonal residents, seasonal business owners, and the likes. We're still working towards the timeline I provided you today. However, the delays may not make that possible. And if that happens, I recommend that we move the public consultation to next summer. The updated project overview also incorporates anticipated changes to the procedural bylaw and the realignment of committee structures. As per the updated time frame, right now the open house is tentatively scheduled for August 14th, 2020. And the required public meeting is tentatively scheduled for September 22nd, 2020. If additional public meetings are necessary to address key issues, they will take place at the next regularly scheduled public meetings. In the coming months, staff will provide a draft version of proposed amendments to council for review and approval. The report I've attached today outlines a preliminary list of ideas being reviewed. I'm not going to go into them in detail today. However, I wanted to provide them to council to take a look at. In future meetings, I will go through them in detail when approval is required. The proposed amendments are basically broken down into the following categories. Updates required to bring the bylaw into conformity with our official plan and other planning policies, such as the county's official plan and provincial policy statement. Updates identified by council or committees. Updates suggested by the public. Clerical corrections. Updates suggested by staff for technical reasons, and lastly, updates to maps or illustrations. Today, I asked council just to think about this and to provide me with any amendments to the zoning bylaw that you would like to suggest. Today, however, this, as mentioned, this is just for information purposes only, unless there are some specific items that council would like to discuss. So, do you have any questions?
Any questions from the floor? Deputy Mayor Kennedy?
Just, I had a couple of points, but I think I can take them offline later since it's just an information update. Looking at how are you going to distribute the new definitions and policy changes that you're going to make?
So attached to the agenda, there was one sheet that had one definition on it, the definition of attached. So I will be bringing this to you each month with a certain amount of changes, and it will have what's existing in the bylaw now and what is proposed. So each month I will bring this forward for direction from you, and if you approve those changes, we won't discuss them again. However, they will be brought forward at the open house when we have the draft bylaw and to the public meetings for the public to look at. So I will bring pieces and changes to you bit by bit for your approval, and then we can move on and discuss new stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you. And one thing that I recall when I've done an updated zoning bylaw before is if you have a third column over as to the rationale behind it, like it might say updated to language or something, if it's clerical, or as requested by Harvest Halliburton or something like that. So there's a little bit of a rationale on a third column over of to when there is a change. Is that possible as we go through this?
Yep, certainly. I just made note of that, and I will add that to that table.
Okay, and the only other thing I wanted to ask you, and you can be checking with other parts and checking with the province in terms of even, today, who knew that in February that we would be having a meeting in, this is essentially our April meeting, but a meeting in May like this. Quickly passed, bill, I can't remember the number of it, so that we could have electronic meetings. Is it possible to constitute an open house and do it electronically? So if you can be looking into that for us to see that we could follow those timelines and not wait till next year. My preference would be to try to go forward this year, if possible.
I'll certainly look into that. As you know, we're currently investigating public meeting processes for our other committees.
Yes.
And being able to facilitate public input. So it's possible. It might not be ideal, but it's possible. It's something I'll look into.
Okay. Any other questions for Jeff on that? Councillor Smith?
Thank you. So one topic that I think Jeff wanted me to raise, we've been sort of back and forth by email on. quite some time ago, I guess shortly after I became a councillor, I became aware of the fact that virtually all of the waterfront properties in Dysart are zoned for seasonal use. And so, myself and frankly, hundreds of others have, built properties here that we live in year round. And our zoning doesn't essentially approve of that. And so I'd asked Jeff by email over the last few days whether this was a time to potentially consider changing that, where it made sense. And I think, Jeff, your last response late last night or early this morning suggested that we raise this today and see what councillors think about it. I also, I guess, as a follow-up to our last exchange, would ask, what are the implications that, other than paperwork, does this really matter? In fact, that a number of us live, on these seasonally zoned properties year round. Does anybody care?
Jeff, do you want to answer that? And then we'll take, yeah.
And I don't know if I have all the answers to that question, John, off the top of my head. But just to back up, John is correct. The way our zoning bylaw defines most waterfront properties is that they are to be second dwellings for the property owner, and are supposed to be occupied seasonally. There is a process outlined in our official plan for them to receive a certificate of occupancy. The official plan states that limited conversion to full-time occupancy can occur through this process. As for the reasons as to why we might not want them all to be lived at full year round, is potentially the lake capacity models. I'm not sure how they were developed, if they were developed for seasonal occupancy. So maybe impacts on water, impacts on roads, services as well, whether it's busing, mail, emergency services. So there's a lot of things that we would have to look into. Apparently these are supposed to be seasonal properties. However, as you know, we haven't necessarily enforced this.
No, there's no, like Councillor Smith did say, in a way, does it matter? Is saying you can't be in a place. Obviously, people are in places. I see a question from Councillor Clark.
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. There's both environmental implications and service implications for the township with regard to approving properties to move from a seasonal to a permanent or a year-round. So I think the solution on this for consideration would be that each property would have to be looked at with regard to its merits, based on the capacity or impact on the body of water. Also with regards to road access, the I guess the strength or quality of the septic system, and whether or not there's children involved in needing bus service. There's all kinds of implications on each of these. So it's a broader consideration that's going to have to be looked at for the future. Thank you.
Okay, and Jeff?
And the one thing I did mention to Councillor Smith is to facilitate this change, if council wants staff to move forward with investigating this, it actually requires an official plan amendment. It's not something that can just be cleaned up during the zoning bylaw review. So we would have to go back and go through an official plan amendment to change our policies, because we can't update our zoning bylaw so that it doesn't comply or conform with our official plan. So, but if council does want staff to go back and take a look at that, that's something that we can look at. It doesn't have to be done during this zoning bylaw update process. We could do it separately. We can still go back and take a look at it and do an official plan amendment if necessary, and a zoning bylaw amendment later if necessary.
So I'll just ask the question, Jeff, is there any municipalities in our region, whether it be south of Kawartha Lakes, Bancroft, Muskoka, anywhere else? I believe they all have, they may call it something, we call ours WR, everybody calls them different labels, but I don't believe any municipality has the area. They have some sort of specific zone for waterfront, do they not?
And that's something staff can review. The one thing that as I mentioned, if we are to change our zoning bylaw or our official plan, it has to conform to both the county's official plan and the provincial policy statement. It's something where staff would have to review the county's official plan first, just to make sure their official plan allows year-round occupancy on the waterfront. So it's something I can look into with regards to both, most importantly, the county and the provincial policy statement, but we can look and see how it's done in surrounding counties as well.
Yeah, I don't think we want to start going too far down that road and directing staff to do too much work if it just creates mountains of work and isn't actually necessary. So Councillor Smith?
Well, thank you. It seems to me that this is a topic that's worth having staff spend a bit of time looking a little further into, to ignore a reality that's occurring and risks some unexpected consequences down the road. Somebody says, "Oh, geez, son of a gun, up on Canisius Lake, there's 400 permanent residents up there, and who knew?" Because that in fact is the reality that's happening. As an individual who did build a place here as initially for seasonal use, but with a view that I may retire here, and not unique in that regard. And nobody, frankly, until I became a councillor, was unaware of this provision. Nobody. I didn't ignore any rules as far as I know. My mail's delivered here. If I had kids, they'd go to school here, and who would know? So for us to ignore the reality, to me, risks bigger consequences down the road, and therefore I think that it would be appropriate to at least have staff investigate this matter a little further and report back to us on the risks, the challenges, the opportunities that may come our way as a result of ensuring that the properties are designated and used consistent with whatever designation we have. Thank you.
Right, fair enough. And Councillor McKechnie?
I can't believe that we're even discussing this in these times. So we're going to aggravate people some more, put this on their plate, something more for them to worry about. And it's okay for somebody like myself. I've moved up here, but my neighbor, now he wants to move, he can't, but I'm okay because I'm grandfathered in. To me, it's a big problem if we want to really dig down into this, get staff looking into it with other municipalities, and I'm sure the province would be involved. I mean, to me, we should just forget about it.
Well, I think, Jeff, if I can just ask you, without you causing days of work, I think you could probably report back at the next even if not the next council meeting, because we're having one only in 3 weeks from now, but perhaps it might take to the June council meeting to do just what Councillor Smith is requesting, just a little bit of research on it, the pros, the cons, what other municipalities do. If you go down this route, this is what would be involved. OP amendment at the county, or wouldn't comply with the county's official plan. We'd need an OP amendment. So just a very, very brief summary of, without digging too deep, just a little brief overview. Would that be possible?
Yep, certainly.
We may then very well determine we're not going down that path, Walt. It's we've had the zoning and it's working. Okay, we still have lots on the planning agenda. If I can move things along, that was for information. So I will move on to the next item. The Ontario Ministry of Transportation is going to be doing some work on Highway 118. Jeff, you want to speak to that?
Yep, the next item is a bylaw. Bylaw 2020-27 is a bylaw to authorize the execution of a permission to construct agreement with the Ministry of Transportation for part of the shoreline road allowance along Head Lake. The MTO is planning to do some rehab work along Highway 118 in that area. The project is scheduled for next year. The scope of work includes the portions of the shore road allowance along Highway 118, which are under our jurisdiction, which is why they're asking for this agreement. They've started the process, or sorry, the MTO has started the process to assume portions of that shore road allowance from the municipality. However, this process will not be completed in time for them to start moving the utilities. So they're requesting the municipality enter into this permission to construct agreement for the purpose of an interim authority to facilitate utility relocation. So unless council has any questions, staff recommend approval of bylaw 2020-27.
Okay, and the only question I had is in our package on the sketch, I'm not sure what, page 6 of 7, the sketch that is used where we would sign and witness, that's an old property sketch. It doesn't show the property as it sits now. On the key map, it does, but not the sketch. Do you know which map I'm talking about? Because it's still, the sketch on page 6 of 7 of this agenda item.
Okay, in front of me now.
Second last page, at the top it says sketch, and it is showing the old property, except at the bottom it's where we would be signing, and I think you have the current property on the number 1 Sunny side, which incorporates the road allowance that was purchased and closed. If we're going to sign a sketch, the sketch should be, you know, accurate. You see what I'm talking about, Jeff?
Yep.
But
Yes, I do. So I can ask them to update that. That's fine.
Yeah, that needs to be updated. And the other thing is we did reach out and ask them if they would consider pedestrian sidewalk, and they did not. However, do you want to tell them what they did say that they would do?
Yeah, I think that when they're complete, what they did say is that there would be a 1.2 meter shoulder on the side of the road, which does leave considerably more room than there is there now. So that is certainly a benefit and an improvement.
Yes. So 118 as it leaves town heading east, where they did that work, that is a 1.2 meter paved shoulder on either side of the road. So that will help with active transportation. Still not great for pedestrians, but that's understandable. It is a highway, but good for cyclists, and I'm sure people will walk there. So, so I do have a resolution on that. If there's any other questions? I need a mover. Moved by Councillor Clark. And a seconder, Walt McKechnie, Councillor McKechnie, pardon me. Be it resolved bylaw 2020-27 being a bylaw to authorize execution of permission to construct agreement with the Ministry of Transportation for part of the shoulder allowance in front of lot 16, concessions 8 and 9, geographic township of Dysart, Municipality of Dysart et al. Be read a first, second, third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Okay, next item.
Then before I start the next item, I just want to thank Deputy Mayor Kennedy for all the work he's helped me with the Halberton County Snowmobile Association and going through this process. For this item, the HCSA, as I'm going to refer to them, has submitted a request to use trails under the jurisdiction of the municipality that are located on the Fleming College property. These trails are actually the existing location of the HCSA trails. In January, the HCSA advised the municipality that liability insurance had been discontinued for use of those trails. And that they would like to enter into a new long-term agreement with all parties involved. So once they discontinued their insurance policy, the agreement, which was originated in 2007, was no longer valid. At the time, and due to the urgent nature of the matter, the municipality and the college and the HCSA entered into a temporary agreement for the duration of the 2020 snowmobile season. The HCSA has now come forward and would like to enter into a long-term agreement for use of the trails on this property. The municipality and the HCSA obviously must work with the college as well on this agreement. So once the agreement has been agreed to by all parties, it will come back to council for approval or for authorization to execute. For now, the HTSA is actually requesting that council waive the fees associated with the process. So the application fee and any potential legal fees associated with the process. So the economic development strategy does provide council with a bit of flexibility if they wish to consider this request. Staff are here today to request direction from council for approval to process this agreement, as well as direction with regards to their request to have the application fees waived.
Okay.
Does
And
anybody have
also,
any questions?
yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Kennedy, for all your hard work on this. We all know for the period this winter and that trail got closed due to this, it was not a good situation with having all those snowmobiles crossing the Head Lake Bridge on the sidewalk, let's say. So this is great. Now, I'm sorry, lots to read, always in our agenda packages. How long are the agreement they're looking to go? You said a long-term agreement, and I can't see the date.
I think this agreement hopefully will be in place forever. Similar to the 2007 agreement, it was forever as long as they held their security. So as long as everybody satisfies the conditions of the agreement, it will always be valid.
Excellent. Thanks for clarifying that. Councillor Clark?
Jeff, do we have any precedent, other groups where we've waived the fees, or reduced the fees for this kind of an initiative?
I can't recall any off the top of my head, Larry. However, as I mentioned, there are a few sections in our economic development strategy that do provide council flexibility if they would like it. And I don't have those sections in front of me right now, but I believe they relate to tourism or winter tourism, trail use, and I can't recall the other sections, but I can't recall anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, I guess that's what my interest would be, is if we exercise that, capability before to waive fees, just so we're not creating new expectations is my only concern.
I would say that this is a one-off. This was a glitch that happened out of the blue in the middle of the season. And, we look at each thing on a case-by-case basis, and I think it's appropriate for this one to look at this in this case. So I do have a resolution for this, unless there's any further questions. Do I have?
And if just one point, if we're going to go forward with this, just make sure we've got the rationale for the exception properly documented, so that we can defend this if we get more.
So that would be in the report that we've received. The rationale is in there, and the what ended up happening, I believe. So the reports are always, part of our council package. Okay. Do I have a mover? I think Deputy Mayor Kennedy, and seconder is Councillor Wood Robertson. Thank you for coming back online. All those in favor? I do need to see your hand. Yep. Okay. And any opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Okay, so just to let you guys know, what I thought we would do here is go through the rest of the planning agenda items, and then we will be taking a 15-minute recess. If anyone's wondering what's happening, we're not going straight through. We do need a quick break. So I will let the planners continue with item D, road closing bylaw.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And the next few items should go a little bit quicker. The next item is a bylaw to close and convey the shore road allowance along the shore of Halberton Lake in front of Lot 15, Concession 7 in the geographic township of Harborne. Bylaw 2020-29 is a bylaw to deem Lot 36 registered plan 362 in the township of Halberton not to be within a plan of subdivision for the purpose of Section 50, subsection 3 of the Planning Act. The deeming bylaw is intended to allow Lot 36 to merge with the shore road allowance. The notice and circulation requirements have been completed and we've received no concerns. Staff recommend approval of both bylaws unless council has any questions that they would like answered.
Any questions on this file? The only thing is there is a removal of something here. Am I mixing up the planning items?
Correct. There was an illegal bunkie and deck located on the property that were located on the shore rollouts. As per council direction, they have been removed. So we can now proceed.
Okay. Now, Jeff, usually in our maps, when we see that, we see the key map, which is the colored map that we see first. It shows the lake, etc. And then we see the actual survey. And generally, they show those structures on the survey map, so we can see where a decorate. So this particular survey map didn't show the bunkie and.
And we can change that going forward. Once a survey has been deposited, they do remove all structures. So it does, okay. Once it's deposited at the land registry office, it does remove all structures and it is just a blank property. When we bring it to council the first time around and we request approval to process an application, that's typically when we bring a site plan that shows the locations of all buildings and ask for direction with regards to any buildings we have questions about. But moving forward, we will make sure we bring some sort of site plan so that you can still see the location of all the buildings.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious on that. So do I have a mover on this? Councillor McKechnie, it's in your ward, I believe. Councillor McKechnie, are you with us? You may have frozen.
Yes, can you see me?
Okay. Yes, I do. It just frozen. There you go. So you moved. Do I have a seconder? I need a seconder. Anybody? Okay, Larry. Moved by Councillor McKechnie, seconded by Councillor Clark. Be it resolved that bylaw 2020-28, which is a bylaw to stop up, close, and convey a portion of the original shore road allowance 15 concession 7 in the geographic township of Harborne, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. All those in favor? And any opposed? Okay, so therefore the motion is carried. And keep rolling.
The next item is for information purposes only. It's a draft bylaw for a joint road closing application located on Redstone Lake. This application is to be deferred until staff receive a deposited plan.
I'm just
sorry, did you have?
Apologize, I did not know there was a second. The first is the to purchase and the second is to deem. And I forgot to read that resolution, but I will, sorry, I need to move in a seconder on previous agenda item. Okay, move Deputy Mayor Kennedy, second. Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2020-29, which is a bylaw to deem lot 36, registered plan 362 in the township of Harborne, not to be within a plan of subdivision for the purpose of section 50-3 of the Planning Act RSO 1990, be amended, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. This bylaw is intended to allow lot 1, registered plan 362, to merge with the road allowance which has been closed and conveyed pursuant to bylaw 2020-28. All those in favor? And any opposed? Seeing none, that motion is carried. Thanks, Cheryl. That's what clerks are for. Okay, sorry. Now we'll move on to the next agenda item.
Yeah, the next item is a joint road closing application located on Redstone Lake. This application is to be deferred until staff receive a deposited plan so that we can complete the bylaw. The reason that it's before council today is because when it's for an original road allowance, which we are required to provide notice and circulate in the local newspaper. So we did circulate and provide notice that it would come to this meeting. So we have to bring it forward to this meeting as a draft. It'll come back once we have that plan.
Right. Any questions or comments? There is no resolution on this. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item.
The next item is an application by John and Joanne DeVries to purchase a portion of the shore road allowance in front of their property on Farquhar Lake. The seasonal dwelling, which is located on the property, located on the shore road allowance, was first assessed in 1952 and therefore has legal non-complying status with regard, as per section 3.2.7 of the official plan. The log cabin / private cabin, which is also located on the shore road allowance, was first assessed in 1935. So it also has, so its location is recognized pursuant to that section of the official plan. However, we have no record of a building permit for the attached deck and shed, which are both located on the shore road allowance. As per section 3.2.7 of the official plan, staff recommend that these structures be either removed or brought into compliance. Lastly, there's a two-story accessory building that was built by building permit 2008-25. It is not located on the shore road allowance. However, it appears that the second story of the two-story accessory building has been converted to a private cabin, which brings the number of private cabins on the property to 2, which does not comply with the permitted maximum of 1 per lot. Staff recommend that the number of private cabins be brought into compliance with the provisions of the zoning bylaw as well. And I request direction from council with regards to the shed, deck, garage and private cabin, and approval to process the application. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Any questions? No? Okay, so it does say in the resolution that the shed stored allowance are to be removed or brought into compliance. So likely removed because they are on the shore road allowance and would, without permit. And the number of cabins be located to brought into compliance. And the applicants are aware of this. They know what they need to do.
Yes, so, and they have a few options available to them to bring stuff into compliance. And that's why we word it that way. For the deck that's attached, it's possible they just need to get a building permit if it complies with the zoning bylaw. With regards to the private cabin, they have a decision to make, but yes, we will work with the applicants.
Okay, excellent. And so no other questions for Jeff? Do I need a mover? Okay, Councillor Clark. Anyone else? Keep getting. Councillor Donaldson, this is in your area, I believe. So a second. Moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Be it resolved, the council approves processing an application by John and Joanne DeVries to purchase a portion of the shore road allowance along the shore of Farquhar Lake in front of their property in parts lot 3 and 4, concession 1 in the geographic township of Harcourt. Pursuant to section 3.2.7 of the official plan, the shed and the deck located on the shore road allowance are to be removed or brought into compliance with zoning bylaw 2005-120. The number of private cabins located on the property are to be brought into compliance with the provision of zoning bylaw 2005-120. These lands are declared surplus. All those in favor? Any opposed? And seeing none, that motion is carried. And a couple more items.
Thank you. Yeah, for the next 2 items, I'm going to pass it on to Chris Orson, our senior planner.
Yes, thanks, Jeff. So this one is for consent for the lands of Duncombe. Council has not previously seen this consent application. This is a consent application for the lands of Duncombe located on concession 8, part lot 29, registered plan 19R 7793, part 1, in the geographic township of Guilford. The subject property is located on Redstone Lake with access off of Preacher's Lane. Staff have not visited the site. However, based on 2018 aerial photography and topography mapping, the property appears to be well vegetated with steep slopes to the lake. The subject property is currently vacant with adjacent properties that are developed with residential dwellings and structures that and appear to have similar topography and vegetation coverage. The application was received for consent to create an easement that is approximately 3 meters wide by 27.5 meters long that will extend through the subject property in favor of Bell Canada. The 3 meter wide easement will allow for a 1.5 meter buffer area on either side of the proposed aerial cable, as shown on the attached plans. The applicant would like to create the easement across the subject property. The property is located within the waterfront area of the municipal official plan. No new lots are being created and no new lot lines are being adjusted, and no new development is proposed as a result of the consent application. The proposed easement is to allow for protection and maintenance and repair as necessary of the proposed aerial cable to be located on the subject property. As outlined in the aforementioned policies in the report, the easement is to ensure that necessary infrastructure are and will be available to meet current and projected needs. Staff recommended that council support the general principle of the proposed severance for the easement purposes only for the benefit of Bell Canada easement over the subject property. And that concludes the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Any questions? Very straightforward. Bell easement. Okay, do I have a mover? Councillor Wood Roberts. And a seconder. Councillor Donaldson. Moved by Councillor Wood Roberts, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Be it resolved that council support the general principle, the proposed severance for easement purposes only for the benefit of Bell Canada easement over the subject property, legally known as Concession 8, Part Lot 29, RP number 19R7793, Part 1 in the geographic township of Guildford. All in favor? And any opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Okay. And Chris?
Thank you, Mayor Roberts. The next one is for Harbour Holdings Limited. Council has not previously seen this consent application either. This is a consent application for the lands of Harbour Holding Limited, located in part lots 9 and 10, concession 9, part 1 of Plan 19R8735 in the geographic township of Dysart. The applicant, Harbour Holdings Limited, would like to sever a portion of their lot and add to adjoining the benefiting lot owned by Mr. and Mrs. Isles to the west of the subject property. No new lots will be created as the application is for a lot addition only. The property is partially located within the Haliburton Village urban policy area, with commercial area fronting along County Road 21 and rural area to the rear of the property as designated in the Dysart et al. Official plan. The subject property, which is the retained lands, is currently zoned rural type 1 with access to County Road 21. The subject property is well vegetated with varying terrain, and the property is currently vacant. The benefiting property for the lot addition only is zoned rural type 1, extractive, industrial, and environmental protection. Also with access to County Road 21, the benefiting property is well vegetated with the exception of a clear area for the existing development that includes a residential dwelling, detached garage, and storage barn. The proposed application complies with the current provisions of the zoning bylaw and is consistent with the applicable policy, including the provincial policy statement and official plan. And the reason for the addition of the lands is that Mr. and Mrs. Isles has been sort of using that area of the property anyways. So Mr. Harbour was looking to provide that as a lot addition for Mr. and Mrs. Isles to the west of his property. So that's the reason for this consent. Again, there is no new lots being created. It's just a lot addition for Mr. and Mrs. Isles. Staff would recommend that council support the general principle of the proposed for a lot addition to the benefiting lands, subject to the following conditions and comments received through the public review process. One, that the severance for the purpose of a lot addition to roll number 01200724400, registered owner to pay any outstanding taxes, registered owner to pay all administration fees owed to the Municipality of Dysart et al. And for prior to the endorsement of the deeds, the municipality is to provide a clearance letter to the Halliburton County Land Division Committee, confirming that conditions 2 and 3 have been fulfilled. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions from any counselors? Fairly straightforward. I don't see any, so I do need a move on that motion. Councillor Donaldson, seconder, Councillor Smith. Moved by Councillor Donaldson, seconded by Councillor Smith. Resolved that council support general principle of a proposal for lot addition to the benefiting lands legally known as Section 9, Part Lots 9 and 10, and RP number 19R 8735, Part 1 in the Geographic Township of Dysart, subject to the following conditions, which were read aloud by the senior planner, and the comments received through the public review process. All in favor? And any opposed? And seeing none, that motion is carried. And then lastly, Jeff, you're just going to speak to the planning committee.
And mostly I just provided that to you all just for your information. We do have one outstanding application that is to proceed to the public meeting committee. However, as you all know, that the public meeting committee and our committee of adjustment are on hold. We continue to work with the county and the other planners within the county to determine how we can move forward. So it looks like we should be able to move forward soon. We just are working out some of the details with regards to public consultation and facilitating public input. So we do have the one application right now, and we do have some more active applications we've received. So yeah, the sooner we get that up and going, the better.
Okay, that's great. And so we'll we can't set a date for that right now because we're in a little bit of a limbo on that. So any questions for the planners? Once again, congratulations, Chris, on your new addition to your family. So at this time, for council and staff and those of you viewing on our Zoom meeting, we will take a 15-minute recess. So that would mean that we would return at 10:40, is that correct? Can't do math. So we'll resume at 10:40, and so everybody take a little break. See you then. Thank you. Okay. And are we live? And welcome back, everyone, from our break. We will continue with our agenda. Is Mike Isles available on the line to speak to our next item? So the next item would be under the fire department reports. I'm not sure if Mike Isles is with us today. Don't,
He's coming.
he's just coming into the meeting, and there he is. Welcome, Mike.
Good morning.
Good morning, and I just want to thank you again for all your work with our emergency control group and everything that you and Dan have been doing. And it's been fabulous working with you under these circumstances. I don't ever want to do it again, but it's been excellent. You've been a great support to Dysart, so thanks. So this is something you and Deputy Mayor Kennedy were working on, so I'll let you speak to that. And also, if you want to just give any update on anything else, go ahead.
Good morning. Welcome to my office. Couple things, just quickly. First, I think council probably and public themselves, there's always questions, will continue to be questions about fire ban. My best direction, I try to answer questions as best I can, but I'm really not in the position to be answering those questions. The fire ban was implemented by the MNRF, and if you're having questions, the typical one now seems to be when it's going to be lifted, how long it's going to last. That all should be directed to the MNRF. So if you're getting questions, ask the people to call their local office. They can, whatever number they can find in the book and chase it down that way. As to my feel, I have no idea. Obviously MNRF is trying to protect their firefighters, and who knows what will work from there. Their website is also a good tool because it defines what's allowed and what's not allowed. So that being said, just a couple comments on the emergency control group. Thank you, Mayor Roberts, for the kind words, but the control group is a group. Quite proud of the group we have, quite proud of the conversation, two-way conversation, some great input, great decisions, great decision making. So it's been a great group. It's been a great learning lesson, and it's certainly a group effort. So it's been very well done by the group. This recommendation that you see in front of you, any emergency is starts as an emergency, but a very key part and very important to look at very early on in any emergency is recovery. In this case, I think it's very important for our community, our municipality, to see that we're moving forward with recovery. And I think it's very important, if not the most important part of this emergency, is how we get out of it, how we get out of it safely, how we can support our businesses, our seasonal residents, our residents themselves to move forward here. So that's where this recommendation comes from. It has to be somewhat vague. Maybe it's very bold to think we can do a lot, but I think it's very important to look at what issues we can. This committee, in my mind, may very well carry on long after we've maybe removed the declaration, and maybe long after our emergency control group has reduced meetings or maybe even eliminated meetings. So that's where this recommendation comes from. So I'll leave that up to you. If you have questions, comments about anything else within the emergency or fire department, I'm here.
Thank you. So Deputy Mayor Kennedy, do you want to speak to that as well?
Yes, okay, thank you. Yeah, I just want to extend my thanks to the emergency control group and Mayor Roberts and Fire Chief and the CEMC, Mike Isles, for the job that they're doing. I think definitely an unprecedented emergency that nobody's ever experienced before. Certainly different than any of the desktop planning that we've all been experienced over a number of years. Anyways, I think we're doing extremely well and working in conjunction and cooperation with the county. Recovery is an important part, as Mike mentioned, is a part of any emergency, and when it's usually focused on economic recovery. But when I got looking at it, I think that we also need to extend it out that it's a community recovery. And so many things are impacted culturally, our arts community, spiritually, and our business community. So that's sort of it's a broad brush approach, but I think we can, I'd be proud to put this, help, develop this motion moving forward. One thing that isn't in the recommendation is that we will work with the county. County tourism, for example, is already underway with some recovery planning. So we would work in conjunction with that. And if there's provincial or countywide organizations, then we would take that into consideration as well. But, that's about it.
Okay, so at this point, I'll take some questions. I might kick it off, or actually, Nancy, Councillor Wood Roberts, you go ahead. Unmute.
Okay, we good?
Yeah.
Just want to take the opportunity to thank Mike and all the fire department in working so well in conjunction with EMS and supporting HHS Emergency Department. They have been invaluable in the last month. And I just want to make sure he conveys those thanks to all of his members.
Thank you, and I will. It's all by email. It's a challenge to continue to communicate, but I try to send out regular emails and help the firefighters understand the job they're doing and how special it is and how much they're appreciated. So thank you. I will pass that along.
Thank you.
Great. Councillor Wood Roberts, did you have any questions on the suggestion for a recovery committee?
No, I think it's a wonderful idea, and I know the BIA will be very keen to be involved in that. They've already tried to do some preemptive planning to assist all the businesses in their catchment area.
So any other questions from some councillors? Councillor Clark?
Yes, I noticed in some of the stuff we're dealing with some food security issues and that, and I know Harvest Halliburton is listed on here, but we're still continuing to meet, and we are tied in with groups like FoodNet, that type of thing for security. The other area, I had a ULinks meeting yesterday, and there's some monies being put forward by the National Research Council on determining the implications of the COVID on community recovery, community impacts, that kind of thing. So if people have some ideas on research needs around how this is impacting our communities and what the impact is going to be on us recovering our communities, by all means, get in touch with me or get in touch with ULinks.
Okay. So at this point, there's no direction. The resolution is merely that the control group would, I'm sorry, Councillor McKechnie. I'll just finish. I'm going to say that the emergency control group would establish a committee. We don't reference of that committee, and we don't say the number of people, etc. The details would be worked out with the emergency control group. So at this point, it's that we wanted council to know that that was our goal. So it would be made up of some councillors and members of the community as well, is the intent. So that's the resolution is fairly vague. It's just for support from council to the control group to get this started. Councillor McKechnie?
Yeah, I'd just like to comment like Nancy in regard to our volunteer firemen. And on Saturday, I had the misfortune of being at the landfill site in West Guildford, and the gentleman eventually did pass away, and I was with him. But the fire department was there first before the ambulance, and also, and these guys are so professional. We don't appreciate them enough, like Nancy was saying. And also Mason out at the landfill site, I can't say enough about how professional he was. We have some great employees, and it was pretty traumatic, but I just like to say, to pass on, please, Mike, to all your staff. And if you ever get a chance to say something to Mason, because he was so professional, it was unbelievable. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Walt.
Thank you, Walt.
And condolences to the family on that. It's I can imagine, very difficult time, but also makes us proud that we do have great municipal staff and also volunteer firefighters. So thank you on that. So I do have a resolution that was included in your package. So do I have a mover on that? Councillor Wood Roberts. And a seconder. Kennedy. So moved by Councillor Wood Roberts, seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Be it resolved that Council authorizes the Dysart Emergency Control Group to establish a community recovery committee to develop an action plan to mitigate the potential economic and cultural impact of Dysart residents from the COVID-19 pandemic. All in favor? And that's carried. Any opposed? Pardon me? I don't think anyone would oppose that, but I should check. Thank you. And thank you, Mike.
Wonderful. Thanks. Thanks for the support.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Councillor Wood Roberts, do you have a comment still?
No.
Okay. And Councillor Kennedy, Deputy Mayor Kennedy, pardon me.
Just that any councillors that are interested in serving on that committee, if they could notify you and or Tamara, the CAO.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you on that. Great. And the emergency control group meeting is meeting on Mondays and Thursdays at this point. We've got 2 days a week is sufficient for that. So we do meet again this Thursday. So any other questions or comments for Mike? No. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we will move into the Public Works Department reports. And if possible, if we can bring in the Director of Public Works. If the administrator is able to do that at this time. Just takes a minute with technology. So the pause is just to wait for the Director of Public Works to come on. So we're still waiting for Rob to come on board. In the meantime, we do have the snowplow equipment tender results, and the resolution was in our agenda package, and this is part of the budget deliberations. So do you know if the administrator, do you know if Mallory's able to bring in Rob at this time? Yeah, just check, because I don't actually see the administrator on there right now. So a technical glitch. If there are any questions. Yeah, okay, so we'll continue on. Again, glitch. Why we need internet in the county. We're lucky we're right here in town, but people who aren't have issues. So I will continue with the agenda, and we have the tender truck to award. And would there be any questions on that? Would anyone have wanted to ask Rob a question? Again, I'll just use this as an example. This was asked by the Director of Public Works. Should I bring this to the Emergency Control Group, or should I bring this to Council? This is a Council decision as we usually go forward, and we can see the tender results. So that's why we waited for this. This is not a control group issue. So do I have a mover on this motion? Councillor Clark, and a seconder, Councillor Smith. Be it resolved that Council award the tender 2020-05 being a tender to supply tandem axle cab and chassis, complete plow equipment to Curry Truck Center for the submitted price of $277,090.60, including HST. And further, that Council approved the purchase of an 84-month warranty for a price of $8,649.60, including HST. And finally, that the cost be funded through the 2021 budget deliberations. So a correction to what I said, this is awarding the truck for next year. All in favor? And any opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. The next item on the agenda is the Public Works update, and we are not able to get the Director of Public Works on the phone right now, but we're going to try. So we may come back to this item. So basically that's our standard report that's showing what is the status whether something is ongoing, completed, it's early in the year. I do know I personally asked about sanding in the downtown core and in some of the streets, and it is taking place. As you know, there's an awful lot of sand on the roads, and so the town is still being done and sanding continues. So we'll leave that for now until we can get the Director of Public Works up later, because I can't answer those questions. And if it's possible, we will continue to move on in the agenda, which is under Parks and Recreation. We may be under the same technical glitch that we might not be able to loop in any of our staff on this.
Yeah, the problem, Mallory, is just got dropped off the internet, so she's trying to reconnect right now.
Yes, and I can see that she is trying to get back online, and I see that our recreation department is coming online right now. So I think my job's a whole lot easier just sitting here. That I think it would be very stressful being the administrator, but anyway, I don't know how to do the behind the scenes stuff, and I do see our director or manager of parks. There we go. Okay, so are you able to hear me, Andrew?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, so Andrew Wilby has joined us, and so I'll let you take it away with the Parks and Rec operational update, please.
Okay, I'll start with the Parks Department. Staff have closed and signed all playground equipment, ball diamonds, and public shelters. Staff have also installed signs at all our municipal boat launches in regards to social distancing and gatherings of more than 5 people. Also, when necessary, staff have assisted with the COVID-19 assessments. Moving on to building maintenance. Staff have commenced the construction of the new pump house for the fire department. This week, the demolition of the pump house will take place, and the pump house is scheduled to be operational again by the end of May. Now the arena, staff have been doing all the annual maintenance to the arena. What's more important in the arena right now is the ice is scheduled to be installed starting June 15th, with the paintings of the lines and logos to take place on June 22nd. And that's as long as all the restrictions have been removed for recreation.
Okay, yes, we're still in such unknown territory with what will be permitted this summer, and we're trying to not preemptively say, for as an example, there will be no summer ice. We don't, you know, we will know that when we know that, but there's no point in pulling the plug yet. So we have to wait and see how that goes. And I know you guys are keeping really busy with the arena. That's with all the repairs that would have been happening right now anyway. And work that you have done with COVID-19 and helped in that regard and whatnot. So any questions on the status there? Okay, I don't see any. And I do, oh, sorry, Councillor Smith, and I also see Andrew Mueller has joined us. So Councillor Smith, question?
Just with regard to the report that Andrew's attached here, his April update in terms of budgeted projects. There were a number of water refill stations that were to be installed this spring. I was just curious as to the status of those, the impact of the COVID and so forth there.
Okay.
Yes, we're scheduled to move ahead in the next couple of weeks with installation, because water refill stations are a necessity and they're essential service.
I believe one thing that happened was there was a scheduled, because we did receive funding for that, for some of that. And so I'll check with our CAO. We've had to delay a funding announcement.
Yes. Yeah, no, and it's going ahead. And there were also some delays with the installation company as well because of COVID restrictions. So I think it's back online to get moving again.
Mm-hmm. But there was supposed to be something at the library with our MPP, and we're not able to do that at this time. So when we can, we will do that. But luckily, most of the work can still take place, which is great. And I see a question from Councillor Clark. Yes, I see.
Yeah. Are there service delivery implications given the COVID. I would imagine if somebody was infected and they were there filling filling some kind of a vessel and were touching different things, there could be community safety implications.
There could be, but at the same time, the health units asked us to keep public water sources and public washrooms open. So we have to, we still go through regular processes of disinfecting, but that doesn't mean things can't happen during the day in between cleanings and so forth. But that has been a health unit request to keep those things available to the public.
Now, do we have requirement then to increase the amount of, or the frequency of cleaning to address the concerns, or any direction that way from the health unit?
Well, I think Andrew can probably answer what they're doing, but I think in general, they've increased frequency of cleaning of toilets and things like that and water sources.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all being done daily now.
Okay.
So once the water fountains are up and running, they'll be cleaned daily.
Thanks, Andrew.
Okay. So your next item is the budgeted projects, and Councillor Smith, I believe that's what you were referring to in that the lengthy list of the projects that. So we'll move right on to that. I did have a question about docks, because we're not putting in docks at this point. Are we going to be, even though they were budgeted, maybe that's something where we can pull back and not do the additional docks?
Yes, that's what I was thinking as well. Yeah, they don't have to be done this year. We can hold off until next year. That's no problem at all.
There's no point in building them if we're not launching them or putting them in. Yeah, I think we should hold off on that if council sort of agrees. Yeah. What else in this list of things that looks like almost everything you are still able to be completing? Wood chips for the Head Lake Playground, probably again.
Yeah, probably not this year. By the time restrictions are left, and just trying to find the material and stuff is really hard at this time.
That's right. So that's again an idea where we could defer that for next year. So anyway, I'll leave it to the floor. Any other councillor questions on this lengthy list that our Parks Department is doing? Okay, so no other questions on that. Then we'll move on to Andrea in your recreation program update.
Okay, good morning. As you know, most spring and summer events have been canceled. We obviously canceled events in April and May into June. Some of the larger events that have pulled the plug are the Lions Club Craft Brewers Fest, the Arts and Crafts Festival, Trash and Treasures. They all decided to cancel, just given that nobody knows when restrictions will be lifted, and there's so much planning that goes into events that they just needed. It was a logical decision on their part. They all would like to come back next year in 2021. Right now, we still have. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. We have the Halliburton Rotary Club still scheduled for music in the park, so they're on a wait and see what happens if things are allowed to move forward and they're able to have the first concert with certain protocols in place, they will. But if not, or if we say what they can't, they're going with whatever the provincial government and the municipalities say. And then in August, the Halliburton and Outboard Powerboat races, they also canceled. As far as I know, the What on Earth Music Festival hopes to proceed, but we'll see what happens there. Same thing with the Halliburton Drum Fest, which is scheduled for the Labor Day weekend. So quite a few things. The summer is going to look a lot different. Yeah. It'll be quiet. And then for spring and summer programming, obviously we had to cancel ball hockey, and all the participants have been refunded. And we have swimming lessons supposed to take place this summer. My one concern is that our swimming instructor is coming from, it's Pablo, and he's currently in Mexico, so I don't know if he's able to make it across the border. That's an unknown. Also, he was going to do a recertification on June 20th in Bracebridge, but if they aren't running their programs, he won't be able to get his recertification. So I would look for a decision mid-May and end of May at the latest, because it takes time to get people registered. At this point, we don't even have our docs and everything in place, so I don't know if it's possible to move forward with it. Our neighboring municipalities, Algonquin Highlands and Highlands East, have canceled their swimming lessons for the summer. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then there was a new program that we were going to roll out in Glebe Park in place of the softball. So softball for 3 to 5 year olds, doing that for 7 to 10 weeks can get a bit repetitive. So the thought was to introduce them to a whole variety of different activities and recreational based programs. Same setup, but just using the different equipment we have. But again, that's something that I don't know if we're able to do this year. It may have to be tabled until next year, but that's a decision. It's the beginning of May now, and we have to make decisions probably by the middle of May to beginning of June.
Okay, we do have a council meeting again, and I believe it's May 26th, the last Tuesday, if I got the date wrong, I hope I didn't. So we will be, whether you need a council decision then, or a decision might be made for you because the province has certain things. But it's better at these points, the things that are canceled, that are out of our control are canceled, and the things that we're trying to, we don't need to cancel today, then we won't cancel today.
Yeah, that's right.
A question from Councillor Clark. So go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, just a comment. We're seeing a lot of other communities because of the structured activities and indoor activities being canceled or deferred. Trails have become a big thing for most communities, and I don't know if there's some way of us kind of trying to do a bit of an inventory and a promotion. The other thing that we've got that's quite unique is the sculpture forest. Again, it's an outdoor type of trail situation. Also promoting some of the sculptures and walk we've got within the community. So there's some other things that we can do, in terms of assets that the community, that the township has got. I think that we can use to, promote active participation and recreation type of thing.
Andrea, do you want to speak to that, or?
Yeah, I can definitely, if I'm able to, I can promote the trails for sure. Practicing physical distancing. I know I myself have been using them quite a bit. We've been using the Glebe Park and around. People are out. Most people are being really good at distancing themselves, so I can promote those for sure. I also created a page about gardening, starting your own garden, and I'm trying to promote that. And I there was a link shared today from the health unit as well about community gardens and that they're open. So I'm going to request permission to share that on our site as well and to promote that.
Thank you, Andrea. And you've been doing an awful lot, you and Alyssa, for some really great posts on Facebook that any of us on social media, please share Dysart's Facebook posts because they do seem quite widely, to try to stay active. One thing, Larry, that we decided in the emergency control group not to do, we didn't close trails, but we also didn't promote them because we and we still are bound by the gatherings of 5 or more. So unless those numbers start to get lifted, we didn't want overuse of those. So that they're there, and people are using them, the same as on the rail trail. There's signage, and there's signage at Glebe Park that show the that talk about COVID-19 and the restrict, to keep separate, etc., and be respectful. So I think it's going well, but we haven't done a big promotion of it either because of that fact. So we're in a little bit of a limbo. And I see, and then the last thing in your report is, the big question mark over summer ice.
That's right. Yeah, and that's something. I know it's not a decision for today by any means, but I know that in the discussion that I had with Troy Binney, who's he covers the summer ice from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. He has to make a decision by June 1st. The Ontario Camps Association has set out that they were going to try to put out some directive by mid-May to the beginning of June. But right now his program, he said, is most of his camps are sold out. We have Brandy Houston, who's taken over for a Monday night program. That's 3 to 4 hours of ice time. And so there's people that they're asking me, do we know? But of course we don't know the answer. Nobody knows the answer. And so June 1st is kind of that date floating around as to, hopefully we'll have some direction from the province by then.
I think that it's all dependent on that. I think Troy would go. It's great that he kept the registration up in the event that province says it's okay, it is safe, but if the province says it's not safe, then the decision is made for all of us.
Yeah.
So any questions for Andrea? Again, thank you for your online presence and everything you're trying to, you know, lots of positive things, and the gardening is great exercise. So everyone's gonna have a vegetable garden in their front or backyard if they can.
Yeah.
Okay, and so the second item in our agenda is basically just a status of all that. I don't think, were there any questions on that? So let's speak to the last item, which is some good news in this day of more bad news and good news, but this is a fabulous letter that we received from the Lions Club. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Andrea, or Andrew?
So last year, the Lions Club, when they had their Craft Brewers Fest, every year they give back to the community. And so from some of their gate proceeds, they wanted to give back to Dysart. And they figured because they're always using the park and they use the park for their events, they thought it would be good. They were asked if there was something that they could do there. And so and then they were asking about environment, and they wanted to leave something, so they'd like to purchase trees. They've given us the money to purchase 6 trees to go along the shoreline in part of the park rehabilitation, which was identified actually during budget time to put 6 willows in there to help secure the riverbank.
Questions, comments on that? Councillor Smith?
Well, thank you. I just wanted to, I mean, you said thank the Lions Club, but I also wanted to thank Andrea for making this suggestion to them. We had a report last summer from a ULink student who'd done a tree study for us of Head Lake Park and some of the requirements there, and the need for refreshing, if you like, some of the willow trees that you know, are mature and damaged. And so I think this is just a fabulous process to build on that study and get these willow trees planted. So thank you, Andrea, for raising that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's great. So in terms of it, will our staff do the actual planting?
Yes.
Okay. And will we do it, we purchase the willow trees, are they of a certain size?
So they're getting, the trees are being purchased by Jim Elstone. We've been in contact with him before I went forward with the Lions Club. I talked to Andrew and to Jim Elstone, and so he will bring up 6 trees on a trailer when he's able to, and then they're of a certain size, and then they'll actually be the ones to plant them through part of.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That's great. Well, we will send a letter to the Lions Club and thank them for this. It's a really good news, like I said, good news story. So excellent. So anything else for Parks and Rec? Okay, so we'll say goodbye to you at this time.
Okay.
Good luck working from home and all that. We do have a report from the museum. Oh, pardon. I missed a resolution on that item. So I need to move a seconder for it to accept the gift from the Lions Club. Do you have a mover? Councillor Wood Roberts, and seconder Councillor Clark. Be it resolved, in recognition of the 100th anniversary of Lions in Canada, each Lions Club was asked to explore meaningful projects within the community, which will both enhance the community and also help citizens be mindful of the continuing work that the Lions do as community leaders. And further, that Council accepts with appreciation the proposal from the Haliburton and District Lions Club Incorporated to plant 6 mature willow trees up to a maximum cost of $2,500 and install a plaque marking their commitment to the environment in locations approved by the municipality. All in favor? Any opposed? Of course not. Thank you. And that is carried. Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, so we do have an update from the director of the museum, and I'm not sure if she's online today.
Yep, she's just coming through.
Just coming through. Thank you. I should have checked this before the meeting. On. And there she is. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
How's everyone doing today? So in terms of the work that's going on at the museum, we're doing a lot of behind the scenes work at the moment because the museum is closed to visitors. So We're doing work in terms of digitization, accessioning, conservation work, creation of new displays as well. So a lot of that's going on. But also, of course, museums around the world are finding a need at the moment to pivot in terms of programming and how we share our collection and all the material that we have available, how we share that with our community and with the wider world. So people are taking a lot of things online, and that's what we've been doing, finding new ways to share items, to share artifacts from the collection and share parts of our photographic archives with people, and also some programming resources. So we're doing a lot of that, and we've been getting great feedback from all of that. People have really been enjoying it, and I think it's an important role that museums are finding at the moment to play all over the world about community morale and celebrating what's wonderful in our communities and keeping people connected at a time like this when physically we may be apart, but it's still keeping that network strong. So we're doing a lot of that. And then in terms of looking forward to the summer, there's still a lot up in the air. So we're just waiting and being nimble about that to see. And as Andrea was saying, yeah, things will become clearer in the coming weeks, and we'll be ready to respond in the best way possible then.
Excellent. Are you keeping track of your Facebook posts? And as an example, the picture that you posted yesterday of was it National Firefighters Day or
International Firefighters Day?
That's what I didn't remember if it was national, international. Fabulous picture of Dysart Fire Department in I think 1960 something or other.
1962, and they were posed right outside the town hall, along with the Reeve and kind of maybe a member of council as well. And I think that the occasion was that there was a new fire truck purchased in 1962. So the truck you see behind them is the new fire truck, I believe. So yeah.
So how many, shares, like how far reaching was that, our posts or your posts?
I think that post had the last time I checked, the reach of that post was, I think, about 3,800 people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, people are really enjoying it.
Yeah. Any questions for Kate on what's happening and what she's doing at the museum? It just jogged my thought when the Premier said this week, and so this is for your department, but for all departments and for retail, et cetera. And he says, get ready for retail, get ready. So I think it's really going to be important to stay connected and find out what get ready means. So
definitely.
So many people in, are we allowed to, what does that mean? Are we putting up plexiglass behind things that people can't actually touch? Because in our museum, there are some areas where people can touch in the lower level where the wood stove is.
Exactly.
And cabin and the reed house, etc. So getting ready in every department is going to be really important to know what that means.
Definitely. And I mean, that's why I'm talking to colleagues within the museum sphere across the country and even around the world, because we're all working our way through this, and we're all looking at best practices together. So, in addition to what information is coming from the province about best practices in general, but also within the world of museums itself.
Great. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Kate or comment? We will keep moving along. So we will now go in. Thank you very much, Kate. We will to the building and bylaw department, and so we'll just give the administrator a minute to bring up our chief building official, Mr.
Andrea, are we still going to go back to Rob Camelon, or?
Yes, absolutely. That's a good point. Thank you for reminding me. So she's bringing in Carl, so we will go back to Rob after, okay? Thanks. Thanks, because I can see. So if Rob, you're listening, get ready. Welcome, Carl.
Good afternoon.
Morning, it's still morning.
Morning, it is still morning.
Luckily, it's still morning. Yes. So I'll let you speak to the septic inspection program and how COVID-19 changed everything.
All right, so we were originally intending to have the program up and running this this summer, but yeah, we're too far behind now to have that happen. So what we're looking at doing is getting council's approval to maybe aim to have it in place to start in 2021. That way we can work on everything that needs to be in place in a timely manner. The other part of it is we originally had direction to include area number 1, the remaining area number 1 properties into the new program. We're looking to kind of revise that process because we will have time this summer, we believe, to capture those area number 1 properties, utilizing a lot of our own staff time to make sure that they get implemented. So there's a few things that need to be in place for that to happen. Now, we originally thought we might need a regular water access. Turns out all island properties on Kinesis, Little Kinesis, had their septic tanks pumped. There's one property remaining that has a class 2 septic, which means they don't have a septic tank. So we're hoping to work with that homeowner or that property owner to gain access to their property, make sure that they still only have a class 2 septic and do that. So out of the 112 properties remaining, what we're planning on doing is issuing orders or to comply, give them the date of the inspection, kind of like what we're going to be moving forward with our new program. Basically give them the date of the inspection. We show up, if they're not there, they're going to get charged the fee no matter what. So that's basically the process that we're looking to move forward with, and then continuing that process, making sure we do capture them one way or the other. Either they're going to be paying $250 inspection if they don't show up, or they'll get their inspection done. So that's basically what we're moving forward with, and we're hoping council supports that process.
So I do know I was speaking with the president of the Lake Association up in Area 1, and that's sort of more or less what they were hoping for. We particularly in our emergency control group, we talked about a couple of things, and one was an absolutely do nothing approach because of COVID-19. We could just say, you know, we're just putting the whole thing on hold, or continue with Area 1 as is. But the third option, which would be to pass a new bylaw, just is not really an option at all right now. We have received many letters and emails and comments on that, and they will all be included when we have the discussion to pass that bylaw. But at this point, this is just to continue the program as is in-house. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm sure there'll be questions from the floor. Councilors? No? Councillor Smith?
Thank you. Just a couple of questions for Carl. You know, my understanding is that both septic pumping services and inspection services are considered essential services. Is that also your understanding?
No, so these types of inspections are not. So they're not inspections dealing with permits. They're inspections dealing with a program. So these inspections would not be considered essential. We wouldn't be able to start these inspections until those restrictions are lifted.
So septic pumping is not considered an essential
No,
service?
septic pumping it can continue, but that's something different than what we'd be doing with the inspection.
And what about home inspection services?
I don't know.
Okay. You know, the approach of proceeding with you know, your inspection, you haven't defined in this report the level that you expect that inspection to cover, you know, in terms of the scope. And so what are you thinking in that respect?
So we'd be doing the same thing that we're aiming to do with our new program. Is basically we're going to be accessing the properties, accessing the building, determining number of bedrooms, inspecting the tank itself. We're not inspecting the tank during it being pumped. We're inspecting the tank before it gets pumped, and then we're requiring the owners to pump the tank afterwards. and have the tank, a report provided indicating the condition of the tank to follow with that pump out.
And is there a good reason that you wouldn't continue with the same level 4 inspection that has been done for the other 800 properties in Area 1? Those who complied with the bylaw and had the pumper there at the same time as the inspector?
Well, there's no requirement to have the inspections done together under our bylaw, as was the case with the third-party certificate. So we're aiming the inspection around what we anticipate the new program to look like, whereas the inspector is looking at the tank without it being pumped. Now, these ones here are going to be different because we're going to receive a report that identifies the tank being pumped and the condition of the tank. So that's a little bit extra than what we're going to be anticipating in the new program.
Yeah, so, but the 800 people who've had their septics inspected in Area 1 so far have had the inspector and the pumper there at the same time. And the inspector has, examined the tank after it has been pumped. And so my question is why we wouldn't continue with that same approach for the remaining 112 properties?
Because the staff are not going to be having pumpers follow them around. We're going to be going into properties. We're giving them a date that we're going to go into those properties. We're not going to have a pumper follow us around. What if those owners aren't there? We're just going to have to pay these pumpers to follow us around and not pump anything. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, it makes sense if you buy into the importance of the program in terms of protecting the quality of water in our lakes.
So we've been over that several times, John. It's not about that aspect. It's having a septic tank pumped is not going to control the environment. It's not going to protect the environment any more than the program that's going forward.
So
well,
John, just
yep.
There are some other people that do want to speak. So, I just want to weigh in, but Carl, so you did say that they would require the pump out, but not necessarily at that same time.
Correct.
So they're still going to require a pump out.
Yes.
Okay. And just to clarify that.
Well, I understood that they're still going to require a pump out, but people get their tank pumped out. They have been doing that for years without an inspector there, and so it's a pump out. The important process that has occurred throughout Area 1 so far is that the inspector is there with the pumper, and in fact, after the pump out has taken place, they'll take a garden hose, they'll wash down the tank, pump again, and check very carefully for the integrity of that tank. I understand Carl's view of that in terms of not believing it's worthwhile, but at the Environment Committee meeting back in February, if I recall now, before the whole COVID thing broke, one of the inspectors who had performed literally hundreds of inspections in Area 1 brought forward a report that showed from Area 1, 43 of the systems that he found defects in. Those defects in 43 cases would not have been identified were it not for the pump out and him being there to watch that. In addition to him, I've spoken with other inspectors from Carl's approved list who validate the same thing, that had a number of cases where the pump out was essential to identifying defects. These people who are experts in the field believe in the importance of it. The lake associations, not just in Area 1, but from across Dysart, submitted letters in speaking to the importance of maintaining the level 4 inspection. And so for us to walk away from that now, to me, is a disservice, and to the lake associations and to the CHA is a disservice to the quality of water in our lakes. And, and I think
your point?
My point is that I'm not happy with the approach that Carl is proposing going forward. I think that certainly for the remaining 112 properties in Area 1, we should hold them to the same standard as the 800 people who complied with the bylaw. And the approach that we've put in place here is not doing that. And so I'd like this to be a level 4, that these 112 properties have a pump out at the same time the inspector's there. And if the, we can motivate those people to comply with the bylaw by enforcing a penalty if they haven't got it done. So write them a letter, give them a date, a deadline, as Carl's proposing to do. And if they don't get it done by then, the cost escalate. And
Okay. There's, yeah. I think you're like, I'm just trying to time wise and your ability to speak. And there's 2 other counselors that want to weigh in on this. So Counselor Clark, you had your hand up, and then Counselor Wood Roberts. So Counselor Clark.
Yeah, I think if anything, this is even more thorough than what the straightforward or the earlier class 4 inspection was, John. The bigger issues we've been having on these things is how these tanks are impacting the bloom area. It's the number of bedrooms or people that are using these tanks. Are they up to snuff? All this comes from that part of the inspection. What you're talking about is just the integrity of the tank itself, which is followed up, as Carl is saying, where they're doing a pump out and inspecting that tank at a later point. If anything, this is a more detailed inspection than just a straightforward class 4 where they pump it out and look at it. That's not as detailed. That earlier stuff is not as detailed as what Carl's proposing now.
Okay, thank you, Clark, and Councillor Wood Roberts is next.
Well, from what I take from this is that Carl said he's asking for a report from a qualified pumper to verify the tank quality, which is the same process that was being done. Would be the same standard, correct?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay,
thank you.
Good point. It's hard to see hands. I do see Councillor Smith. Final point.
well, I hope it's not a final point. I'm hoping for further discussion on this topic. But to Larry's comment, the fact that the tank is going to be pumped at a later time is by a driver of a pump truck. The only qualification in Ontario to drive a pump truck and pump septic is that you have a driver's license. And the fact of the matter is that that's what they do. They pump a tank. They don't have any special training or designation that allows them to assess the integrity of the tank. Some drivers have some experience and offer some judgment there. But as I said, they're not required to have any training. They have no designation. And so all they're doing is pumping the tank, and it's as simple as that. It's not an inspector there who's washing that tank down with a garden hose and examining it carefully, looking for defects in terms of leakage around the inlet or outlet connection, tree roots that may be in the tank. I mean, the capacity of the tank could be significantly reduced because of root growth within it. These are issues that don't get discovered with the approach that's being proposed here. And, and again, lake associations and the CHA and others have spoken up complimenting Dysart, tremendously enthusiastic about the fact that we had the most rigorous program in Haliburton County, and disbelief that we would walk away from the standard that's been put in place.
Okay. And we hear you, and I am not trying to cut you off in any shape or form, but I do feel as chairing of the meeting, it's my job to keep the meeting flowing. I know Carl has something to add to that, and it's not that it's new information or new questions. We're not, we hear you, and whether it's an agreement or not, that's one thing. But anyway, I'd like to hear from Carl, and then we do have a resolution. So we will, Carl.
So just to clear up some misinformation that is being passed along. Again, I've shared this information with Councillor Smith before, but septic tank pumpers are required to be qualified.
Thank you.
Well, Carl's made that statement, claiming that that is in the building code. As the chief building official of Dysart, how many pump drivers have you spoken with and examined their qualifications in terms of ensuring that drivers of each
That's
of
not
those
our
trucks?
responsibility. I have to say that one of the options, pardon me, that we could have done right now is that first option that I spoke about. Due to COVID-19, we were doing nothing. Absolutely nothing, 0 septic inspections. And I commend Carl for looking forward to try to at least finish area 1. We will have a more fulsome discussion on this when we look to revise the bylaw, and there'll be further opportunity because that is when we will receive. That is why those letters are not on there. This is to complete area 1. We are not moving any new bylaw forward at this time. So I think that there'll be time for discussion in the fall for that. And again, as Carl reiterated, the last line of the resolution says that provided COVID-19 relevant restrictions are lifted in time. So all of this is still dependent on us being able to go into somebody's property to make sure that we are looking at the bedrooms, etc. So I do have a resolution. Like I say, this is not pushing anything quickly, but we will be having a discussion on this again in the fall. And so we can be discussing it at that time.
Well, Madam Mayor, just before we proceed to vote on what's before us, I'd like to propose an alternative that utilizes the bylaw that's in place today and has inspections proceeding consistent with that bylaw. And that we allow any property owner across all of Dysart to complete an inspection, a level 4 inspection consistent with the existing bylaw in 2020. And that if they pass that, that meets the requirements of our septic inspection program. They don't need to pay another fee to WSP or whoever it is we end up selecting to be paid for the inspections that Carl might be proposing at a later time. And that for those delinquent owners in Area 1, that we institute an administrative penalty, which we have the authority to do, of sufficient size, I'm going to say $250, that would motivate them to proceed with the level 4 inspection with the approved third-party inspectors and pumpers that are in place, and that they be given a deadline of say the 1st of July to get that done, or they incur this $250 penalty. And then later in the fall, as you said, or next winter, when we're looking at what's going to happen in 2021, we'll have a chance then to get the public input, hear from those more than 20 people who sent in letters and emails, have public delegations, and hopefully continue with a program that is a model, considered a model, best of breed in terms of the approach. But in terms of 2020, this proposal of mine would ensure consistency across Area 1 and would give those property owners who are enthusiastic about getting a proper inspection done, give them a chance to get it done and have confidence that that's going to be accepted by Dysart and not incur another round of expenses when we hire WSP or whoever happens to win the tendering process that Carl's proposing.
Okay, so is there any support from any other councillor to change? The resolution does get included in our package, so we have that resolution to read ahead, plus we have all the background information, plus we've heard from our chief building official. Everyone's had fair opportunity to discuss. Is there anyone that wants to make any change, or do I have a mover for the resolution as it stands? Councillor Wood-Roberts?
I'll move the resolution as it stands.
Is there a
I'll second it.
So just a minute, Nancy and Larry. So we do have a mover and a seconder, so I'll read the resolution as it stands. Moved by Nancy.
Madam Mayor, I'd like it to be a recorded vote, please.
Absolutely. It's all recorded every time I say those in favor, those opposed. So we will do it by roll call.
I will call the roll.
The call. So I will read the resolution and the clerk will call. Moved by Councillor Wood-Roberts, seconded by Councillor Clark. Be it resolved, the council supports postponing the revisions to the septic reinspection program in light of the COVID-19 restrictions. And further, that council directs staff to complete all requirements to have revised septic reinspection program ready to commence for 2021. And further, that council supports the proposed plan in completing the outstanding properties in Area 1 in 2020, provided the COVID-19 relevant restrictions are lifted in time. So called.
I will call for a recorded vote, please. Councillor Clark. please say yay or nay.
Yeah, it's verbal. Thank you. Councillor Clark? You have to unmute that.
Yes, I support.
Councillor Donaldson,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kennedy,
Yes.
Councillor McKechnie,
Yes.
Councillor Smith,
No.
Councillor Wood Roberts,
Yay.
Mayor Roberts.
And yes, so the motion is carried. Okay, and secondly,
Mayor?
yes, Councillor Kennedy?
Just further to Councillor Smith's, is that something that should be brought forward as a formal motion either this later on today or at the end of the month, as far as the septic, people wanting to complete a level 4 inspection later on in 2020 and being included as part of the inspection program? I believe it has some merit and should maybe be considered separately.
My understanding was that anyone in any area could have a septic inspection done at any time, especially those coming into area 2. For instance, if it was deemed, I'm going to get my tank pumped out anyway, why don't I get this inspection done? That inspection, I believe, is good for 5 years or something. So
Okay.
let's Carl?
Yeah, so that's,
But yeah, anybody at any time.
we were originally anticipating that the new program would be up and running this year. It's not going to be. So does the existing, can they get an inspection this year utilizing the method that was in place, that's currently in place? It's not something I've considered. It's something I'd have to put some thought into. We can definitely contemplate that, maybe have something come forward for the 26th meeting.
Okay, my understanding all along was that, for instance, last summer, if someone in area 2 wanted to needed their tank pumped out or whatever, maybe they were even changing their tank, who knows, and they could have an inspection done. That even though they weren't even in the area where it was required yet, that if they ahead of time, once we move into the area where they are required to, they have that in, or that we would accept it at any time. It would show on their file that their property is complete.
Right.
So really anyone can have an inspection. I just want to make sure we know what we're directing Carl to do. So Councillor Smith?
Well, what I would be proposing is that, what I did propose is that we encourage people to do that. We make them aware because there's not general awareness of that 5-year window. And so, you're right. In the Redstone area, I spoke at that Lake Association meeting multiple times, and there were a couple of dozen people who on that lake, because they needed a pump out, last summer, they went ahead and got an inspection done as part of it. That same thing could be happening in areas, the rest of area 2, it could be happening in area 3, it could be happening in area 4. Area 5 right now, given our current schedule, doesn't meet that requirement. But again, the chief building official could give them that designation. And so that when those people need that pump out, or those that are just concerned about whether or not their septic is functioning properly, be encouraged to do this and know that they've met the requirements of the program and they're not going to incur another fee when Dysart brings in another program, a year from now or whenever it finally gets brought together.
Okay.
Making people aware of the privilege as opposed to keeping it secret.
Yes. Yep. No, it's not. It was never intended to be a secret. So, but we will. So, Carl, if there's anything you want to add or how we can get that out, we aren't going to probably be going to lake associations, but there are 2 lake associations that I'm doing submissions for, written submissions for newsletters. So I'll speak to you on that before I submit what I'm writing. All right.
So I think the information I can provide here will clarify that. So in this report, I'm identifying that the properties in area 1, they can still obtain a qualified third party prior to the date that we send them in the order to comply. So we're supporting that process. So if any property wants to get their they're inspected under this current program, I don't
I'm trying.
support that still.
Yeah, okay, well, just to keep light of the time and to move along, we still have some agenda items. We are going to be discussing this again. So Councillor Smith, one last, that's it.
Well, I just wanted to encourage councillors to go to the website of OASIS, the Ontario Association of Sewage Industry Services. Their website is OASIS, just the way it sounds. And have a look there at the qualifications that are required to be a septic pump driver in Ontario.
Okay.
You'll find out it's a driver's license only. And it's as simple as that.
Okay, we do have to move on. Like I say, this is not the final discussion on this issue. But so.
Well, it is the final discussion apparently in terms of the balance of Area 1 and the,
okay, Councillor Smith, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. We've discussed it and we have to move on the agenda. Pardon me, but that's call to order. We're going to move on to the draft K9 bylaw. So Carl, I don't know if you want to speak to this.
Sure. So this one's, yeah, it might be a little more involved. So again, the bylaw that's proposed with this report is not intended to be passed today. We're just looking for direction. We're going to bring something forward in the future that's going to be actually ready to pass, but I just want direction. So again, this is to do with eliminating the dog tags. That's one component. That's why we revised the bylaw. But we're also looking to include two other items in here, issues that we've had in the past that we didn't really have a tool to be able to deal with. One is administrative penalties. We dealt with that with our noise bylaw. We've dealt with that in our fireworks bylaw. So council, I think, is aware of what administrative penalties are. They're permitted under the Municipal Act. They're not punitive in nature. They're just made to pay for our time to investigate these complaints. So the other part of it is the incorporation of dangerous dogs and muzzle orders into the bylaw. And again, we've had a situation in the past where we've had a dangerous dog and no real means to deal with it other than the Dog Owners Liability Act. The Dog Owners Liability Act is a very difficult piece of legislation for bylaw enforcement, municipal law enforcement officers to deal with. And it's not intended to, a dangerous dog and muzzle orders is not intended to replace Dog Owners Liability Act. We still have that as a tool to be able to use in serious situations where we've had severe attacks or severely aggressive dogs. So we're looking at this as an ability to be able to move forward and address some of these dangerous dogs where people are afraid of their, the neighbor's dog or something. Maybe it's very aggressive. They don't have good control over the dogs. But in doing so, we need to have a municipal process where people can appeal that muzzle order. So if we do decide to go this route, we would have to set up a committee to deal with these types of complaints. I don't see very many of these, but we would have to have that process in place. So just looking for feedback on those processes and any issues that you see with the draft bylaw that we can change before we bring it back to council.
Okay, so yes, a question from Deputy Mayor Kennedy on the draft bylaw.
Yeah, I'm curious as to why the original dog bylaw, for lack of a better word, it included an exclusion for hunting dogs, and you've decided to take that clause out of the new bylaw. The one that your 2007-87 said that no person who owns or keeps a dog or dogs shall knowingly or unknowingly permit such a dog or dogs to run at large. But you left that language in, except the last part of that sentence from 2007 says, except that nothing in this bylaw shall prevent the lawful use of a dog or dogs for hunting during legal hunting season.
Right. So I personally didn't see the need to have hunting dogs being able to allow to run at large, other than
by the ministry.
Beyond, right?
If you're licensed by the Ministry of Natural Resources, is a $12 fee per dog, allowed during bear, moose, deer, and raccoon at night.
Right, but does that give them the permission to trespass onto other properties? I didn't see that as being a necessity, but again, I could be wrong. I don't have hunting dogs. I've never used them, so I don't know what the capacity of hunting dogs are in this regard. I'm looking for feedback, right? So
They can't read no trespassing signs, but
no, but it is a big issue here. We do have lots of people that hunt. They usually have permission usually from, to hunt on different property, but I do think we need to include hunting dogs so that it's clear in our bylaw. Yes.
So we should include that wording back in?
I think so.
I don't know why it was taken out in the first place, so.
Okay.
Anyways, other points I have is there's no mention of service animals. You're not allowing dogs or animals in municipal buildings, but unless it's for a special event, but there's no reference to service animals. Also the tie-in between the public health unit and dog bites, nothing in in that part. So I would recommend that it come back to the subcommittee or to committee of the whole in the future before it goes forward for comment, and allow the public to make some comment on this as well.
Yeah, that's why it's out here. This is
Yes.
a public record, right? We've introduced it as a means where people can make comments on. So,
what is the process for that? This was just this is on an agenda item that came out late Thursday afternoon, and here it is Tuesday. Is there, in the provincial world, there's a 30-day or a 60-day environmental bill of rights opportunity for the public to comment? Is this going to be posted somewhere for comment?
no, this is the forum. So it's seeking feedback through this council meeting, right? So that's what we're seeking right now. Again, if people want to provide individual comments to it, they can do so as well.
So it is in draft form and there's no set date when the bylaw would be passed. And I'm wondering, Pat, if maybe someone would be talking to the Haliburton Outdoor Association for their input. And also just to keep in mind that this did come from council direction because we were taking out the dog tag part. So we said revise the canine bylaw. And so
it's gone far beyond that original intent though.
Okay, and it was also written by our bylaw officer who's no longer with us. So nobody's, this was Carl's bringing this forward, but he didn't even write it. So it's on the table. Let's use our tools. Sure, Councillor Smith in just a sec. We use our tools of getting it out there to the public and coming back for a comment possibly at our next meeting. So this is only just a draft. And Councillor Smith had a question next.
Not a question, it's just a comment. I find it quite ironic that minutes after we've dealt with, failed to deal with offenders to an existing bylaw, we have a bylaw that council passed back in 2017, and we've put no consequences in place for failing to adhere to it. We're giving the 112 people who failed to follow through and adhere to that bylaw, we're giving them an easier path to completion than the 800 people who followed the law. And now we're talking about implementing another bylaw on something as difficult to legislate as dogs and behavior of dogs. We're being laughed at by people who didn't adhere to a previous bylaw, and now we're worried about another one. I think we should take this bylaw and throw it in the trash can, because people have learned that here in Dysart, adhering to bylaws is a matter of choice as opposed to an obligation.
We're discussing the canine bylaw only at this time. Is there the resolution, again, that does get included in our package, says that the staff bring forward the canine control bylaw as proposed to the May 26th meeting of council for consideration. So I don't think that we want to bring this bylaw forward as proposed. I think we need to do some more research into it. I think you need some more, you've had some direction that we can take back to staff, which is service animals, hunting dogs, and the ability to tie back into health units is what I've got on that. Is there anything else? I'd be hesitant to bring the bylaw back May 26th, maybe bring the revisions back.
So canine control bylaws don't typically go into the realm of the health unit. The health unit is their own act. They're the ones that legislate when dogs need to be quarantined, those types of things. So canine control bylaws don't do that because
Okay.
they don't look at other acts. But again, we'll look at those items for sure, and see what we can have, and we'll gather other comments that we have. If individual counselors get comments, definitely pass them forward so we can, review them and incorporate them into another draft.
So I'm just checking with just 1 minute. I'm just going to check with the clerk. So do I use that resolution as stands, or should we as okay, we're just tweaking the wording because we are going to be getting some revisions, and so bear with us.
Sure.
And if Rob is on standby, we will go to Rob Camelon next. Okay, so the resolution we've amended. It says, be it resolved that council receives the draft canine control bylaw report as information, and the council directs staff to make amendments as directed to review again at a future meeting. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Kennedy and Deputy Kennedy and Nancy Wood Roberts. And the resolution was read. So those in favor? And any opposed? Councillor Smith. Okay, that motion is carried. Okay, so if we're able to, thank you very much, Carl. Anything else? I talked about Ford says we need to get ready. And so in the building and bylaw department, particularly with the building, we are still receiving building permits. We are processing building permits. We are not actually issuing building permits. So we do know that people can site prep their property. They can get a driveway entrance permit. They can dig holes and get ready. So I'm, we're on it as much as we can. And anything else you want to add to that?
We're looking at possibly lifting septic, the restrictions on septic permits this coming week. So stay tuned for that.
Okay, thank you very much, Carl. Okay, so if we can go back on your agenda just to your public works update, and we're just hopefully getting Rob Camelon to join our meeting. And there he is. And you just take a sec to unmute. It just takes a second. There we go.
Is that better?
It is better. We hear you. Welcome.
Awesome.
Nice to see you. So we did pass a resolution regarding the snowplow that will be part of the 2021 budget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see all that. I guess you couldn't see me. So
no, we didn't have you in. So it's great that you can get back in. And now we just want to go through any public works update. I did mention about the street sweeping because I've had lots of people asking me about that.
Mm-hmm.
Go through the public works update and any questions.
Yeah, there's about 3 pages there worth. So just fire the questions at me if you like. I don't think it's worth going through line by line. So
no.
What I can tell you, I just want to back up to the truck tender just for a second, if I could. Just a comment, I was speaking with the supplier of the snowplow equipment, and something that didn't really dawn on me at the time, but they have some concern now with their supply chain, just given the pandemic we're through now. They don't know what impact it's going to have, if any, at this point. Just from their point of view, the operations at their factory has really been scaled back. So it really takes them quite a bit longer to get the equipment ready now. So thank you to council for this pre-approval, because it does ensure that we will get our truck when we need it. So just wanted to throw that out there. I haven't heard anything from the cab and chassis side of things, but I would imagine they're going to be in the same boat.
I would think so. Everything's going to be affected by this. Councillor Wood Roberts?
I just wonder, what kind of trucks are they?
The successful one is a Freightliner.
which we have other Freightliners.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've dealt with this company before. Okay, any other questions on some of the updates and where we're at? I have Councillor Smith and then Councillor McKechnie.
Thank you. Rob, in your detailed report there, you speak to another truck that you're expecting to take delivery or just taken delivery of, and a heavy-duty snowplow. Presumably that at a 232,000. Presumably that's not the same kind of vehicle that this tender for has gone through at 285,000.
No, the one that we haven't, and we haven't taken delivery yet. I haven't been pushing it. So the last update I had in March was an April delivery, but that's a single axle plow.
Okay.
Really, there's not a whole lot of difference between them. There's an extra axle and a little less steel.
$50,000.
Yep, depending when you order it. The single axle that actually services Kinesis Lake was about a $285,000 touch. Just given the four-wheel drivetrain and the automatic transmission, that type of thing. So it's all how you outfit them.
So is the cost now, is it a lot higher than it was a year or so back? Like this one that we just bought?
No, actually it's a couple $1,000s more than an identical truck of last year. But the difference between these two is this one has a longer warranty.
Okay. All right, thank you. So that's
Yeah, 84 months or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
Okay, so any other questions?
Another question for you on your report. You've got the Coleman Lake Bridge rehabilitation.
Yes.
Any news in terms of timing for that?
No, I reached out last week. So at first they were waiting for the half loads to come off, and they have since been come off. So our engineer is just waiting to hear back from them on mobilization. They're supposed to be done by the end of June, so I would expect they'll be moving soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So Councillor McKechnie and then Councillor Wood Roberts.
Yeah, Rob, I'm getting a lot of calls in regard to the landfill site at Halliburton Lake. I know that the emergency committee has closed it and for good reasons, but they really would like to know if there's any chance at all that it'll be considered to be open even one day a week or for the long weekend. Like I say, I'm getting a lot of emails and calls about it. So
I'll have to defer back to the group on that one, Walt. That's not my call. So
all right.
It will be discussed this week.
Yes, we will discuss it.
It will be discussed this week, but I have nothing else to offer on it at this point. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Wood Roberts.
I just wondered about the timeline for the construction, the in-town construction, Park Street, Mulholland and Bayshore Museum.
Last I heard, they're going to be moving in the middle part of June.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm hoping to have everything or mostly everything done prior to July 1st.
Okay. Can you kind of just give me a week's notice or a few days notice so I can?
I've asked them for a 2-week lead time, so I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Anyways, well, Rob, send that out to all of council.
Yeah.
Just if you know stuff like that.
Yeah.
What else? I had something.
Andrea?
Yes.
Would it be possible for us to post the tentative construction dates, commencements on our website so that the people on those streets, if they can look at it and say, oh yeah, this is going to be done? I just didn't know if that was something feasible.
Well, I'll defer that to Rob, because I don't know. Sometimes it's like, for instance, people are asking me, when is my street going to get swept? I don't really know. It's a bit operational. This might be different. So Rob, is that possible, or is that binding us? And
it could make a lot of work. Everything is weather dependent, so it just say I can't update the website, so I'd have to find somebody to do it for me. And then
I just meant for the construction.
Yeah.
Not for anything else. Just that there's going to could be an interruption in travel on your street because there's going to be some reconstruction.
Yeah, we can put some thought into it for sure.
okay, so we'll discuss it internally. That's a good point. People do like to know when things get done, and the work will continue up at Halliburton Lake, Fort Irwin with that contract as soon as, I would imagine, like any day now, they should be able to start work up there.
Yeah, I spoke with the contractor yesterday, and they're going to mobilize shortly to get the grade set on it, and he's hoping to have it paved within the next 3 weeks.
Excellent. That's good. Any other questions in all of this? Just want to say thank you, Rob, and it's very, you think at first working from home, oh, that's kind of might be nice, and then it's not nice anymore, and it's very difficult when your papers are here and not being able to connect. We just for all the office staff, a lot of what we do is interdepartmental. One thing leads to another, and we're able to walk down the hall and talk to somebody. And it is very difficult doing work in this environment. So thank you, Rob, for all you're doing. And I do know you hired you're getting the seasonals back, and we're working out how to get them working in a safe environment. So that's great. Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you some other time. So now I believe there are only one report which has minutes. There really nothing else met, but Harvest Halliburton did meet. So Larry, I don't know if you wanted to speak to the Harvest Halliburton minutes for me a second.
Yeah, we're continuing to meet, and then we're meeting again actually on May 19th. A big part of it is around the food security, I think, as I mentioned earlier, and we're also looking at such things as the farmers markets and kind of some of the different options some of the other townships are looking at for enabling them to go forward. They are considered essential. Again, there'll be probably a scope down version and some discussion with the township in terms of how these will operate. But we are continuing to meet, and we'll apprise your emergency committee or whatever is needed. So.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we've been dealing with the farmers market issue as well. So, okay, so we will move then into finance and go to Barbara, who's on screen, and just will unmute. And welcome, Barbara.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Roberts and members of council. So I guess the first report we're looking at is the revenue and expenditure report at March 31st. And you'll see there that the revenue taxation does reflect our interim billing. So outside of that, there's not really anything notable to report at this time as far as the first quarter. Obviously, we are dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, and I do have a report to follow up that will give some further insight. So if there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer them on the revenue and expenditure report.
I think it'll likely come in the next report, and the cost of COVID-19 and where we're at with that. So why don't we move on to that?
Okay. So back on the 17th of September, the province of Ontario had declared an emergency due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And subsequent to that, then the municipality has moved their focus towards public health and essential services. So the chart that is included with the report there has outlined some of the exposures that the municipality is currently watching. I'll just go through some of the key items there. And the first one being the loss of interest on our investments. We've seen that the Bank of Canada has dropped the Bank of Canada rate by 1.5 basis points, which has a direct impact on our interest on our different bank accounts. The next item is the deferral of property taxes, and also the forgiveness of penalty on payments for the interim tax payments, deferral to June 30th. Another area of concern is the revenue at the medical center. Two things happening here. First of all, with the assessment center being set up there, that has deferred the project to complete the parking gate. So obviously that has a negative impact on the revenues there, and we will be watching that closely. Hopefully we can get that up and running soon. Metered sewage is another area where revenues will drop. Obviously, our schools are closed. Fleming College has canceled courses this summer. Highland Summer Festival has canceled. So those activities all have an impact on the usage of our metered sewage system. And then the recreation revenue, obviously, we've heard about some of the programs being canceled, and one of the key decisions that have yet to be made is the summer ice, which is quite a revenue generator for the recreation, and hopefully we can get that cleared up by June. So I just wanted to stress that this report is an estimate only. Finance is watching over this. Obviously, we don't know when the pandemic's going to end. Being optimistic that we can start moving forward at the end of June in terms of getting a recovery plan going. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on the report.
Okay, so I have first Councillor Donaldson, then Deputy Mayor Kennedy, then Smith. So Councillor Donaldson.
Hi, I just had a question about your the loss of interest. Do we have to take any money out of those investments at this time, or is all the money still there?
No, the money will remain in the investments.
Perfect. So then when it goes back up, we didn't really lose anything.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Good question. Kennedy, Deputy Mayor Kennedy was next.
Thank you. Any opportunity you think, Barb, to cost recover some of the medical center parking revenues by billing HHS? The use of the parking lot?
Yeah, so there was an invoice that went out to the HHS for the assessment center, the infrastructure and the traffic control. We can look at additional revenues for use of the parking lot to help with the medical center parking revenue.
Thank you.
Okay. The other thing is everything's being recorded, all staff hours, all costs, as this is just a general round number, but I think it's really important during this to keep track of costs if there's any support that municipalities will receive. When I see this, it's not a good news story, but as we've all been watching the news and I listened to the mayor of Vancouver and the mayor of Mississauga, cities that really rely on parking as a revenue generator, with big parking lots and lots of street parking are absolutely being crippled by this. But their revenue is just not by just shy of 2%. It's like their revenue is dropping off by 10 and more percent, and it's very dire. Councillor Smith was next with the question.
Thank you. Well, first, I think it's terrific that Barbara and her team are keeping track of expenses and lost revenue related to COVID-19, because for the very reason that Andrea's mentioned, it's possible that at some point in the future we may be able to secure some funding from the federal or provincial government, because all cities and communities like ours are suffering, and we don't have the opportunity of those levels of government to run deficits. But I wanted to ask about any opportunities. In fact, maybe if there's support from council, we might get a report at our next meeting from the finance department in terms of possible areas to cut back on discretionary spending in 2020. We see our businesses severely impacted because of the pandemic. But we also see our taxpayers, our residential taxpayers, severely impacted by this, and their ability to absorb tax increases in the future is diminished because of this pandemic. And Andrea mentioned earlier the deferral of the expenditure in the town docks. Bring something forward from the finance department for council to review at our meeting at the end of May in terms of other candidates for reduction or deferral of discretionary spending because this pandemic could be very important going forward.
Barbara, what do you?
Yeah, staff can look at that and work with department heads to determine opportunities on saving in expenses and capital projects.
I think we obviously have to. I know Deputy Mayor Kennedy at our county council meeting asked for a budget review, if you will, at sort of, was that going to be at our next council meeting, I believe?
I think they're talking about the end of June, I believe, is what the goal was, to have that report ready for county council.
So I almost think because this meeting is a week behind and our next
Yes, too soon.
3 weeks, why don't we wait to have that report at the June meeting as a target? Because it's and I think we absolutely have to be doing that. That's why I was just thinking, town docs are one thing, and it doesn't matter if it's 7,000 here and it doesn't sound like a lot of money, and yet it all adds up. It is a lot of money. We're going to have to be very prudent this year. So if that's okay, great suggestion. I would just say that let's look at it at our June meeting.
Okay.
To give staff time. Everybody's okay with that. I do have a resolution on this, just keeping track of the time. So we're just going to, because we have a couple more items, one last big one. So I need a mover and a seconder to accept this information. A mover, moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Clark. Be it resolved, the council received the staff report COVID-19 pandemic financial impact as information that will be regularly updated during the 2020 budget year. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, then the motion's carried. There's some tax adjustments. These are sort of normal.
Yeah, so these are Section 357 tax adjustments, 2 properties, one being a correction on an impact error and the other was a demolition. So total write-off of municipal taxes is $912.
Okay, so mover and seconder for this. Deputy Mayor Kennedy and Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved, the council authorizes tax adjustments for the applications made under Section 357 Municipal Act 2001 as amended as follows, and the amounts are listed. All in favor? Opposed? None, so the motion's carried. Thank you very much, Barbara, and we appreciate all you're doing to keep track. Oh, there's the metered sewage report, pardon me. I don't even want that.
Yeah, I'll just speak to that there. Yeah, so again, you can see that the usage for March has dropped exponentially. Year to date, if we keep at this rate here, we're probably looking at about a 12 to 15% drop in our metered sewage revenues.
Yeah, which I think we should anticipate because of what you discussed earlier. The schools aren't even going to be used in the summertime now for the college, theater, or anything. So something that we have to keep our eye on. And there's no resolution on that. It's just for information. So thank you. Any other further questions for Barbara? If not, we will move into the last item on our agenda, which is committee structures and procedural bylaw update. It seems like we're always updating our procedural bylaw every month, but that's okay. This is last time we did it for electronic meetings, and we have, anyway, Tamara, I'm going to let you start with this and then I'll weigh in if that's okay.
Okay, I was just going to actually offer to let the clerk start the discussion and then I'll follow up with.
Great idea.
Yes, as for the report, as you can see, we need to update the procedural bylaw. We would like to start with the implementation of the new iCompass program. It's going to facilitate us.
Speak up.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's going to facilitate us to streamline some administrative process. And there's been some discussion with council indirectly with respect to hosting the committee of the whole process, which removes the standing committees out, some of the standing committees out, and streamlining the meetings as outlined in the staff report. Meredith, I don't know if you wanted to add to that because you've reviewed the structures.
Yeah, you covered most of it. In the report, we've included a chart, which I assume you've all looked at, that would provides a recommendation for what committees would move to and which functions would move to committee of the whole. It is a very common structure within municipalities to have a committee of the whole meeting and then a council meeting 2 weeks later to basically ratify those decisions and give a bit of a breathing period as well in between if new information comes forward that needs to be considered. Basically, we have suggested moving environment and climate change, infrastructure and equipment, economic development, and administration and finance, events and recreation, and DIMO bus committee into committee of the whole. And leaving the other committees as outlined in the chart for the various reasons that's summarized there, whether they have public members or their networking bodies. I think there are a number of advantages to this in terms of council communications. As I've noted in the report, quite often if there's a standing committee meeting, say it's environment, and there's members of the public or the press there, recommendations to council may come out on social media prior to the rest of council members hearing that, and then they're put in a position to answer or uphold a recommendation without really knowing much of the background about it yet. And it just gives everyone a more equal playing field in terms of the information that's being discussed, because issues are becoming a lot more complex these days.
Absolutely. So I know we'll take questions, but I just thought if the deputy mayor and myself will just speak to it first, and then that take some questions. So when I was first elected mayor, it's one of the privileges, if you will, of the mayor is to create a committee structure. And, you know, I'd had some experience on council. And so we kept things fairly similar with committees, and we tried to, but we added some new committees. And as our CAO reports, that things are getting more complicated. And what I've noticed in the last little while is that something will go to council or to committee, and then it goes to council, but then it has to go back to committee. And so if it were committee of the whole, as we've been just started doing at county council, all of the councillors have an opportunity for those questions. So I would like in the committee of the whole is the one where you do sort of the digging, the groundwork, getting staff to with the questions and giving staff's direction. It, in my mind, moving to this type of structure will help streamline our actual council meetings, because the majority of the discussion will have happened at the committee of the whole, and we should be able then have the staff come back with the recommendations that we've asked for and whatever reports. And so we're sort of should be able to have a little slightly more streamlined council day for these issues, and then we would still have planning on council day. So I don't know, Pat, if there's something you want to add to that?
Yeah, I've had the first year of my term here was with the regular structure, and at the county, a little bit different. They still ran committees on the second Wednesday of the month. And the way the committees that I was on, excuse me, I sat on a number that one was at 9 o'clock, the other one was until 10:30, but I ended up staying. What I've noticed in Dysart is that with the different days and dates and times, I've been missing a lot of meetings and committee meetings. And I feel that very, very important, given the complexity of things that we're dealing with, that we go to the committee of the whole so that all of council is aware. And I like the concept you just gave of we do the groundwork, the digging, all that, and all that comes to council basically will be clarification, and it should help streamline the process. But I know that the environment committee in particular, one I've been hit and miss on, a lot of really, really good discussions are happening there, and it would have been excellent if the other councillors had been able to attend. That's a great example to me of moving to this structure.
Okay, thank you for adding that. And so questions from the other councillors. I see Councillor Clark.
I guess my question is, what's the overall service review that we're doing right now? Is there any discussion in there or points in there that support moving towards the committee of the whole?
This review is more for operational. It's not governance review.
Okay.
It's more for it's not about us. It's not about how council's operating. It's about how the work is getting done out in the field. So I think this.
Well, it's got
our
something to
choice.
do with kind of how we operate. And I guess what I'm thinking of is other councils I've worked on, we've done a committee of the whole and then gone to a more traditional council. And as a result, the council meetings are a lot shorter. You cover, as Deputy Mayor Kennedy has referenced, there's a lot more discussion in the committee of the whole. And so everybody's pretty much on the same page by the time you get to the council meeting itself. So things do move faster as a result. But I'm just wondering if there's been, if there was any type of benefits through the service review, but it sounds like it's outside of their scope, so it's okay.
And honestly, the goal is not to make anything faster, slower. We signed up for this job. We ran in elections, and you know, the time is the time. I always put the whole day in my calendar, but it's more for process of streamlining than about looking at the clock. It's about that, as an example, before on the county council, I've never been on the roads committee, except now I am because it's committee of the whole. And I would, as Deputy Mayor Pat said, I would go to those meetings. I was there and I sat in what I always called the cheap seats, and I sat back there and I listened. So I was part of it. But then the resolution and the recommendation comes back to council. But if I add something new to it, which has happened, that's why the county's gone to that, then it has to start the whole process all over again. So it really is going to get every councillor part of the meat and potatoes of what we're all responsible for. We're all responsible for the environment. We're all responsible for infrastructure. We looked at those committees. I think it gives everybody, every councillor on equal footing. And as Pat said too, then you know, we just know our schedule, the second Tuesday and the fourth Tuesday. Those are our meeting dates. Now, the only thing I just want to point out in the chart that is brought forward, it actually names members of council to cultural resource to that. That's still, we could change those because with this rejigging, if we, for committee of the whole, it sort of puts a couple of councillors on all of those externals and some councillors not on any. So I think we can rejig that. Is that correct, Mara?
Yes, you can go ahead, and if there's councillors that are interested in making changes, if they let you know or me know, we can incorporate that into a new appointment bylaw, which will be necessary to follow up after the procedural bylaw is done.
So we can pass this recommendation, and then the procedural bylaw would come forward to our May 26th council meeting. And then after, so we can pass it on the same day, but after the appointment.
We can, yeah. If we know who is going to be on which committee, we can have the appointment bylaw ready for the next council.
Right, and I'll talk to all the councillors on that. So we could have probably both resolutions on at the bylaw and the appointment bylaw at the same time, one following the other, and I'll talk to councillors just because, you know, Tammy Donaldson's on everything. So okay, now questions. Oh, questions from the clerk.
No, I just, through you, your worship, I just want to also clarify to council in sections 19.5 that we have added some procedures with respect to hosting electronic meetings, because now that some of the bugs have been out and people have had set some processes, we got some good examples. We've our pants to pass the amending bylaw last month in order to be able to hold electronic meeting, but now we've incorporated some good procedures in place of how to actually host them. So that's a new clean section that we've added.
So any questions on that section? No. Okay, so we do have a resolution that directs staff to prepare a revised procedural bylaw. Do I have a mover? Councillor Clark and Councillor McKechnie as the seconder. And be it resolved that Dysart et al. Council directs staff to prepare a revised procedural bylaw for consideration of council as per the May 5th staff report. All those in favor? Any opposed? There are none, and that's carried. That's fabulous. Thanks everybody for your support on this. And I think going forward, You know, we'll get our calendar, and I'm hoping if the IT department and if council's up and running, that we should get on, we pass this at our end of May meeting, and we should be able to get on track for June to have committee of the whole. That's the hope, but I'm not sure.
I thought we were waiting to.
We'll see. There's no, we'll
Yeah.
pass it and we'll see how things go. Nothing further on the agenda. So thank you everybody for hanging in this long. And for those of you who are still viewing at home, thank you for watching. And I do have a motion to confirm the proceedings. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Wood Roberts and a seconder. Councillor Clark. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2020-30, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular council meeting held on May 5th, 2020, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. All in favor? And any opposed? I imagine. Thank you. Before we adjourn, I want to thank the IT department. I want to thank our administrator Mallory, who's doing the behind the scenes stuff. I'm just sitting here. So this has gone really smoothly, really, really well. And I'm really proud of all the staff and council today. Really, it's not easy, but we're making it work. So take care, everybody stay safe. And if there's any updates later in the week, as whatever we hear from Premier Ford, and whatever our emergency control group decisions come out, we will make sure that those go out as we always have done to all of council, so that you know ahead of the press release what we're doing. So anyway, if there's nothing further, I need a motion to adjourn. Oh, Councillor Kennedy and Councillor Donaldson. Be it resolved that council adjourn its regular meeting held on May 5th, 2020 at 12:34 p.m. All in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. Thank you very much and take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.